And welcome into the Thursday edition of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. We got a lot to get to on today's show. Predators head coach John Hynes will join us at 7:30. Looking forward to that conversation. A tough one last night for the Nashville Predators. They've got an opportunity with two coming up against the Carolina Hurricanes to clinch a playoff spot later this weekend. We'll talk to John Hynes about that. Ben Arthur covers the Titans for the Tennessean. We'll drop by at 8:45. And Hal Gill, Preds radio analyst, at 9:30. As always, taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Joe Rexrode, how are you? What's going on?
Doing all right.
Yeah?
Yep.
Did a little golfing last night?
Yeah. Great event at Top Golf. A Preds event. We had a couple of bays. So Chase McCabe had one bay. I had the other bay. I guess I had, we represented the station, and then we had listeners. So some winners from yesterday, which was awesome. And Chase, that's easily his best sport. I can tell you that right now.
Hey.
I think we may have video, to go out. And I mean, several times I looked over and I was like, that's not bad.
Yeah.
Again, the bar's a little bit low.
Bar's a little low
for Chase. But when I think about the sledgehammer, the bat, what else have we had with Chase?
I think that's all I've been able to withstand.
Is it those two only?
Yes. There's no video of him shooting a basketball, but I can tell you it is amazing.
I bet it is.
So swinging, he was all right. He was all right, and so. Shout out to my team. We called ourselves the Village Idiots.
Nice.
Scott and his dad, Bill, and Ryan and Brian. Brian.
That's good.
Active duty Army.
Awesome.
Fort Campbell, helicopter pilot, and also a dude who looked like he could hit a golf ball about 500 yards and probably beat up the whole place if need be.
Yeah. Well, it's always good to have.
I felt secure in the bay, so that was good.
I know Chase texted us last night from the event. I think he put this on Twitter too. I mean, he won one round with his team. I mean, they hit 20 golf balls. He ended up with a score of 34. That was the high score on his side of the bay. So you don't see Chase McCabe and high score associated together very often in an athletic event. So I was proud of it.
That's great, yeah. Now, anybody who's been to Top Golf, for example, I scored a couple times with total shanks that just went straight up and then happened to go into one of the targets. But whatever. I'm not saying that's what happened.
You're not saying it's not what happened either.
No, yeah, I don't know. But, hey, whatever. A win's a win. And a loss is a loss.
It's true. Well done, Chase McCabe. We'll have some video for you later at 1025 The Game on Twitter.
Later as in like 2 seconds.
Later is in 2 seconds. So make sure you're looking out for that. Chase McCabe swinging a golf club at 1025 The Game on Twitter. It's pretty epic. It's not quite as epic as his baseball swing, but it's pretty epic. So make sure you check that out at 1025 The Game on Twitter. Joe, the Predators, a tough loss last night. Had an opportunity to clinch a playoff berth. Not able to get it done against the Columbus Blue Jackets. They fall 4-2. Columbus adds an empty net goal with about a half a second left in regulation to make it 4-2. But a game where the Predators, they had the 1-0 lead. They had the 2-1 lead by Jodavion Rexrode scoring a goal there, abandoning him and Preds pick to click, and then he scores for you.
Yep.
2-1 lead for the Predators. Columbus ties it up at 2 to end the period. And then they have a possession where they just dominate in the offensive zone, go up 3-2, and the Predators just didn't have an answer for it at that point. They lose to Columbus, and had they won that game, we'd be sitting here today talking about a playoff berth for the Nashville Predators because Tampa Bay hammers Dallas last night 6-2 in regulation.
Yeah, really, I think disappointing performance, disappointing outcome, obviously, but I just didn't feel like they played their best. I didn't feel like they played like they've been playing, and I mean, really, you look at the whole set there in Columbus. I mean, you've got the blown lead, but you blow a 3-goal lead in the first game. You get the overtime heroics, you get the 2 points, and then you blow two leads yesterday, right? 1-0 and 2-1.
Yep.
Just not great. Not the type of performance you want to see from a team that's supposed to be one getting in the playoffs and then also bringing its best to the playoffs. So Dallas helping out. We'll see if Dallas has anything left. Like, if I'm Dallas, I'm like, you know what? Get 1 point tonight. And then you're sitting there with Chicago for 2, and they got Carolina for 2.
Yeah.
Find a way one time, or not tonight. It is
Friday.
tomorrow. It is
Friday.
tomorrow.
Yep.
Find a way, and it goes back into your favor.
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, Terry Crisp talked about this after the game, and I agreed. I just didn't think the energy level was where it needed to be and where I expected it to be. I mean, you've got a game coming in there where you've got an opportunity, if things go well, to clinch a playoff berth. I mean, you've got to take care of your own business, and then you worry about the result of Tampa Bay and Dallas after that. I don't think the Predators had a whole lot of energy in that game. I mean, they put together a nice push towards the end, and Ryan Johansson had a nice chance from the slot. You know, they had a couple of good looks where Elvis Merzlikins made some great saves at the end of the third period. Really, other than that, I didn't think the energy level was there. I mean, the shift where you just get hemmed in there, Ryan Ellis can't clear the puck, you get hemmed in the defensive zone for like a minute, and then Columbus scores the goal.
You knew it was happening.
I mean, that's just inexcusable. I mean, this is a team that's not good. You got a bunch of young players out there. You had a 3-0 lead in the first game. You squandered that. It got to overtime. It was a good response to go win it in overtime. But I was not impressed with the energy level. It was not where I thought it should be last night. And I don't know if that's simply just a fatigue thing and they just didn't have it in the tank last night. I don't know what it was. But I thought it was a pretty unimpressive effort last night from the Predators.
I've got a theory on why the energy in Columbus may not have been where it has been in the last few weeks.
Okay.
They've been playing huge games against Dallas, Florida, Chicago, Tampa, Carolina, and you've got this big Dallas game on Saturday, this past Saturday, where they win in great fashion in overtime. And then you've got this potential playoff preview coming up this weekend against Carolina. Could it have been, everyone talks about a trap game. Could it have been a trap 2-game series in Columbus where you feel like you're that close to the playoffs after beating Dallas? You've got this huge 2-game set against Carolina. And then you've got Columbus, which doesn't really pose a threat in the standings, and maybe you just don't get up as much for those games as you did the others.
If that's the case, that's ridiculous and inexcusable.
It's natural, though, in sports. You see it all the time. Yeah,
but you know what the stakes are. And in this league, too, right? I mean, we've talked about it. And that's the thing. I mean, you could look at it through this lens from the outcomes. You know what happens in this league. It happens all the time that these teams that are just playing out the string pull upsets. But that's the thing. If you know that, then you got to know the danger level, right? I mean, a guy who hadn't scored all year just had a hat trick on you, and you had to pull one out in overtime. So to me, after that game, I mean, I hear you. They've played a ton of big games, but you put yourself in a position where you had to make this crazy run to even get in the playoffs. And I think you set a certain standard of play, and you've been pretty good at maintaining that. And I just think even a little bit of a step back from that it's not excusable to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they viewed Columbus that way or not. I mean, if they did, that's not a very good reflection on that room because you got an opportunity to clinch a playoff spot. Like, you're not in there yet. And right now, I still think they're probably going to be okay. I think Tampa probably wins Friday night in regulation, and you don't have to worry about this. But if they don't, and Dallas finds a way to stay alive, all of a sudden they got 2 against Chicago, and you've got 2 against Carolina. I don't know, man. That's not a good formula. You have not beaten Carolina all year.
And it's also like this. I mean, the answer is, of course, yes. Any answer to this question is yes. But is that how you want to go in, thanking Tampa Bay last night and then rooting for them Friday and not doing it yourself, not doing anything yourself? I mean, I know you've done a ton to get here, but you're in a position of just hoping that Tampa Bay bails you out. Now, granted, the answer again is yes. You would rather have that than be in this pressure situation.
Yes.
But you know what? If you back in here because Tampa Bay beats Dallas and then you play 2 meaningless games against Carolina, I don't know if that necessarily benefits you going into the playoffs either. But however you get in, you get in.
Yeah, I mean,
you'll take it.
Just get in at this point, and look, like I said, I still feel good about their chances as they move forward here. I just thought last night, I don't know where the energy level was. I mean, I thought they would come out and they would play like their hair was on fire with a chance to get in the playoffs. In the first period, I mean, you had the goal by Tanner Jeannot, and it was a good play by Tanner Jeannot. I thought that line brought a decent amount of energy all night long.
Yep.
That was really it, though. Like I didn't see a whole lot from any other line and really any other player out there other than that. So I was disappointed from that standpoint. Again, I don't know what the reason is. Maybe it was they took Columbus lightly, especially when you get up to a 1-0 lead and you're like, all right, well, we'll just coast here and get a win and we'll go out. But I just thought they were really average all game long, and I did not expect that heading in this game. I thought when you could see blood in the water as a Shark and you've got an opportunity to clinch a playoff spot, I thought they would come out and play the style of game that they want to play. It may not be perfect, may not get the goals you want to get, you may not execute as well as you want to execute, but the way they played I thought would be there compared to what they've looked like the last month and a half, and it was not. It was not there at all.
I mean, the second goal to me was a killer. You know, there's about 48 seconds left in the second or whatever. You know, and that's another case of not being able to clear the puck. That's also a shot that I would hope UC Saros would stop. You know, I mean, another thing about this game to me, and I could be wrong, but I feel like Saros in this kind of growing Vezina discussion had to have like some eye-popping numbers down the stretch in wins and performances, and it's not helping. You know, to lose this game to Columbus when you're pushing for the playoffs, and you're already coming from behind in that thing. So I think that took a hit too. And I think he was good, but at this point I guess we're kind of expecting heroics from him, and that's one that he'd probably like to have back.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a strange play because Duchesne's late going to close out on the shooter, and then by the time he gets there, and you could argue that Saros was screened, but it was still one of those shots where it went in and was like, that's not a goal he's been allowed as of late. It was. I agree from that standpoint. And now, like, what in the world's going on with Matt Duchene? He had 3 shifts last night in the third period. Was that a performance thing? Was that a injury type thing? I mean, he went from 2 minutes into the third period, he didn't skate again for 13 minutes in the third period. 3 shifts total. So now, could you have some more injury concerns creeping back up with Matt Duchene? It's not good heading into this weekend.
Did you see anything?
I didn't see anything.
In terms of, like, yeah.
Yeah.
I would assume that'd be it, though, right? I would assume.
I don't know why if you're John Hines, that is not the time to be doing that. Maybe, in a regular season, 82 games, and you've got some time, and this type of situation is not the time to be sitting people on the bench.
Right. Yeah. You can have conversations after the game.
Yeah. So that's something to keep in mind moving forward, too. Like, could they have more injury problems moving forward with Matt Duchene? He did come back, so I guess you feel good about that. But, Ali, it'd be nice if they could stay healthy for a little bit coming down the stretch here, too. When we come back, we'll continue the conversation on the Nashville Predators. What's your concern level after these last 2 games against Columbus? Now heading into a big weekend set against the Carolina Hurricanes. Let us know on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game.
And the Blue Jackets win this one 4-2 over Nashville with the empty netter.
Was there something missing tonight that you guys just didn't have, whether it was energy or something that was missing towards the end tonight?
Yeah, I don't necessarily think it was energy, Jared. I think it was, we had some really good looks, and I thought, their goaltender made some really good saves when we did have some looks. But, I think there was lots of rebounds and things around the area, not even just at the end, even in the second and throughout the game where, we just didn't have either opportunities to get to the pucks, or when we got to the pucks, we had to get some second chance looks, and we didn't get in as many as I think there were opportunities to do it. So when we had good looks, I thought he made some really good saves. And then I think, against him, because he is a very good first save goalie, I think that traffic and the rebounds and the hunger in that area of the ice, it wasn't good enough to be able to get one to him.
That was Predators head coach John Hynes after the 4-2 loss for the Predators last night against the Columbus Blue Jackets. And talking about the hunger level there to get to some of these second-chance pucks, second-chance rebounds for the Predators last night. I agree. I didn't think that was there. I did think energy was a problem with the Predators last night. You heard John Hynes say he didn't think that was necessarily the case. I did. I thought it was a problem last night. And I guess my question would be, if that's the case and you watched that game last night, and whether it's an energy problem or not having enough hunger to get to the front of the net like he talked about there, how concerning is that when you factor in the last couple of games against Columbus? Given the stakes, given everything that's on the line, you find a way to save yourself on Monday and get the win in overtime after you blow the 3-goal lead in the third period. And then last night, it never felt like they got any traction in the game last night. How concerned would you be if you're a Predators fan about the last two games against a Columbus team that really has no business at this point hanging around?
Well, I would say we've been praising that fourth line. It's been fun to watch. But I think when you get to the point where you feel like your best chance to score is every shift they have, I think that might be a little bit too much. And I think they're the one exception to what John Hynes just said. You think, especially, I think about that, the possession late with Carrier coming in and getting his own rebound. That forecheck, I think they had everybody in front of the net. Those guys were in the hard areas, and there was some bad luck and there was some great goaltending, to Hynes' point. But I think the concern level is that where is that with everybody else?
Yeah,
I saw Johansson up there a couple times. Can always see it more. Yeah, right. And I just. Those guys set the standard in a lot of ways, which is great, and all credit to them. And again, Tanner Jeannot, dude is he's quite a revelation. But there's some players on this team who make way more money. I know we talk about it ad nauseum, but these guys have got to finish, and they've got to be more aggressive and more willing to take a beating to get in there and get greasy goals.
Yeah, and they're playing the first goal by Tanner Jeannot right now on the NHL Network, and it's just relentless on the forecheck. You get the puck behind the net. Was not a great goal allowed by Merzlikins there, but sometimes putting that puck on net, finding that lane to get a shot through, and that's what happens. It ends up with a goal on the board, and like I said, they just never really found traction after that. I think one thing that I've noticed lately, especially the last 5 games or so, Eeli Tolvanen has started to cool off a little bit. He's got 8 shots on goal in the last 5 games, had 1 shot last night. He's not really been all that dangerous as of late. That's concerning. Obviously the power play, you want him on that, and he's going to be a huge weapon on the power play. But 5-on-5, Eeli Tolvanen seems to have dried up a little bit, and they've got to find a way to get him going as they move forward here.
Well, it's interesting because I think the first Columbus game, I was like, okay, there it is. Yeah. So of those shots you just mentioned, I think just about all, okay, we're in that game. Yeah. But that's a great point. You're not seeing him. You're not seeing much of him. And that was a big part of, before he got hurt, obviously the power play, but also everything. Everything with him is compete level. He was doing everything well to earn himself that role. So they need more from him. I feel like Forsberg has come back and has looked like Forsberg, but again, it's you still want it. You want more opportunities, more finishes.
Tolvanen has 1 point in his last 5 games.
Yep. 1 point in the last 5 games, 8 shots on goal. I mean, you just got to find a way to get him going again. And maybe that is, as simple as on the power play. Sometimes scoring on the power play can get you going 5-on-5. We've seen that happen a lot throughout the course of the year here with him especially. So that's something that's going to have to get clicking again before, the playoffs start if you make it. But you may need Tolvanen to get going again just to get in the playoffs. I mean, we'll see what happens on Friday night for the Stars against the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Predators did get some reinforcements back in there last night. Colton Sissons was back in there after missing 1 game, and Dante Fabro back in there as well. I thought it was interesting how they handled the D pairs to start the game. You had Ellis and Yossi. You had keep the left-right shot in there. I mean, the way Matt Benning's played lately, though, I don't really know how you keep him out of the lineup.
Yeah, that's a surprise. I wonder what.
I don't know how you do. I don't know what you do to fix that, because I don't know that either Matt Benning or Dante Fabro can play the left side and is all that effective on the left side. So maybe it's just one of those things where you got to make a tough decision, and one of those two is going to have to be out, and Harper's going to have to play the left. But I was kind of surprised when Harper was back in there last night.
You think he sticks with that?
I don't know. I mean, if you're right now, do I think Harper's one of their 6 best defensemen? No, I don't. I mean, Gudbransson's out last night. Now that Fabro's healthy, probably don't need to see that guy again, unless you just absolutely have to in the playoffs. But I don't think that Harper's one of their 6 best guys. But it may be one of those things, like if you're going to play Fabro or Benning, you've got to play Harper too, because neither one of them can play the left.
I was about to say, can Benning play the left?
I don't know.
If he can, then I would say that has to be your third pair, Benning and Fabro.
Yeah. I mean, it's difficult. It sounds like it could be easy, but I mean, I think Yossi could probably play the right if you wanted him to. Ekholm could definitely play the right. But not many guys that could play both sides in the NHL. It's a lot harder than it seems.
Yeah, people don't think about that, but you got to figure out that combination there. I mean, you could bring Fabro up and change up your, but you're not going to do that at least for a while, right? And now you're about to, we think, start the playoffs. So you kind of need to establish something that you can go with here a little bit, right? For a couple games to get ready for that.
Would you think about shuffling up the lines at all if you're John Hines? I mean, I didn't think, quite honestly, Granlund's line was very good last night. I thought Yarncroke, I mean, he gets the goal, but I didn't think that line as a whole was all that great last night. I know it's one game, so you don't want to overreact to things. If you're John Hines, do you maybe consider moving the lines around a little bit? Maybe moving Matt Duchene up? I don't know.
Maybe. And, I mean, part of the answer to that question is what's up with Arvidsson?
Yeah.
Because obviously he comes back, that changes things. I will say that Nick Cousins was playing pretty well. I mean, it's tough decisions. The decision is not going to be Sid Duchene, unless he's hurt again, as you said. But I mean, Cousins was bringing something.
Am I missing something on Brad Richardson? Like, I understand when Sissons is out that you put him in there, and I thought he stepped into the fourth line, played fine. Okay. But, like, to me, if everybody, or at least enough people are healthy, like Brad Richardson should probably not be in your lineup. That's me. Am I missing something? I don't know.
I would agree. I would definitely agree. I mean, again, I was quite impressed with Richardson jumping right into the Sissons spot and what he did. He fit right in with that line. I thought he did well, but I would, like, if it was a choice between Richardson and Cousins and you're still banged up, I mean, I'm going with Cousins.
I would think so. Like, it's going to be interesting to see what they do with Arvidsson, because he's day-to-day, and it doesn't sound like it's all that serious. You had Sissons back in last night. You had Fabro coming back in last night. Like, if Arvidsson's ready to go Saturday, I'm fascinated to see what this lineup's going to look like.
Well, if Arvidsson's ready to go Saturday, but it's close, and Tampa Bay just won the night before,
sit him down.
Have a seat.
Yeah.
Right? That's what I'm saying. That's what I was saying earlier is, obviously, if you're the Preds, you're rooting for Tampa Bay, don't put some big pressure on these games against a team you haven't beaten all year. But you would have 2 games where you're just kind of hoping to avoid injury and, I guess tinkering with some stuff. And that's a weird situation if that's how it turns out. Like that you're potentially playing 9 straight against a team you haven't beaten, but the first 2 are like exhibitions.
Yeah, and look, I mean, who knows what Carolina's going to look like too? I mean, they play tonight against Chicago. They win tonight, they're at 81 points. That means Florida can't catch them at that point. Tampa Bay, I mean, you're going to have to basically win out at that point. And they've got one more with Dallas, two more with Florida coming up. So, like, for all intents and purposes, Carolina could wrap up the division tonight. Like, I don't know that I believe that Tampa Bay is just going to sit there and roll through the next 3 games. Maybe they do. I don't know. But Carolina, by Monday, at least Monday, they may not have anything to play for as it comes around here. So I don't know what these 2 games are going to look like. If you're the Predators, I think the best thing you hope for right now is just sit there on Friday night and see if Tampa Bay can take care of business against Dallas. And then you get your Pecorine start on Saturday. It all works out. I had like 3 people tweet me after the game last night, legitimately upset that now Pekka's not going to start Saturday. I was like, well, hold on. We'll see what happens Friday.
You don't know what's going to happen.
We'll see. He could.
I mean, he could still start Monday.
Yeah.
Right. If they have to do something Saturday and they do it, then he can start Monday. If they have to do something Saturday and they don't do it, then
we'll see.
There you go.
See what happens.
Play better at Columbus.
Yeah, absolutely.
I do think if Dallas wins or at least gets a point Friday night, that Saturday night, the Preds will find a way to win that game against Carolina.
Really?
I hear everybody, the fact that they haven't beaten Carolina in 6 games, but that I fully believe that they would rise up and beat Carolina Saturday night to punch their ticket to the playoffs.
What if Carolina?
Because they've responded the last 6 weeks to almost every time they've lost, they've responded.
See, I'm trying to remember here. Okay, so because I think part of that is Carolina's incentive, right? So what's the mathematical scenario where the Preds would have to win, but Carolina would too? Is that possible?
I don't know that is. I mean, it depends on what Carolina does tonight. Like, if Carolina wins tonight.
Yeah, that's true. Basically, it comes down to tonight. Like, if Chicago gets them, then that's in play. But if Carolina does what we think tonight,
they'll be at 81 points. And then if Tampa doesn't get the 2.
So if Tampa gets the 2, it's over. If Tampa doesn't get the 2, then
Carolina's won the division.
Then Carolina's won the division.
Yeah.
So that's for them it means nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
probably just hoping at this point Carolina.
So for the Port's prediction there, like, is better.
Yeah.
Because if they don't care, I guess you could ask, like, who would they rather play then? Does Carolina does Carolina prefer Dallas?
Probably not. I imagine they'd probably prefer the team they're 6-0 against.
Yeah.
That's my guess.
Yeah.
It's just my guess.
You would think. What's their record against Dallas? Pretty good too. Right?
It's probably pretty good. I bet it's not 6-0.
Yeah.
We'll continue the discussion on the Predators when we come back. Get to your thoughts on our phone and text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. You're listening to Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game. Make sure you're tuning in later on in the show as we reveal a keyword for you to text into the game line for your chance to win the T-Mobile Hockey Homegate giveaway, a Dos Equis prize pack including a case of beer, dessert from Nothing But Cakes, a T-Mobile prize pack, and food provided by 312 Pizza Company in Germantown. We'll have that opportunity coming up for you a little bit later here in the show. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee, streaming live on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch as well. Right now, discussing the Nashville Predators, taking your thoughts on our phone and text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Let's go to our phone line. Bob from Antioch is calling in to Robby and Rexrode. Bob, thanks for calling in. We appreciate it.
Good morning, guys. I have an observation and then a question. My observation is the Predators are a lot more enjoyable and entertaining to watch than they were last year. Last year I felt like there was staleness about the franchise and about the team, and they were in a tight playoff race before the pandemic shut everything down, but I don't think I know I wasn't terribly excited about it. This year, regardless of what happens this weekend, they've been an awful lot of fun to watch, and so for that reason alone, I'm optimistic about their future, their shortcomings notwithstanding. My question is, got Ellis, Ekholm, and Yossi, and then you've got those 3 or 4 young defensemen. Do you think that they'll leave any of the young defensemen exposed to the expansion draft?
Hey, thanks for the call, Bob. We appreciate it. I mean, first off, on his first point, I would agree. I think they're 1,000 times more fun to watch this year than they were at this time last year. I mean, you could make an argument. This run they've been on, and I don't even know if it's an argument anymore, has probably been the most fun run that they've had since what? The President's Trophy year? Maybe.
Yep.
Yeah.
For sure.
Since they went on, that 15-game point streak?
Yeah. I mean, it's been a whole lot of fun. As of late, the story's not done yet. They've still got some work to do, but it's been a lot of fun to see them kind of claw their way back into this point. So, to Bob's point, I would agree. I mean, I think it's been a lot of fun to watch. As far as the expansion draft is concerned, I would be surprised, based on the comments that Poyle made about Ekholm, if they didn't protect 4 defensemen. Like, I would
4-4-1.
It's going to be 4-4-1, and I would assume it's going to be Ekholm, Yossi, Fabro, and Ellis. Now, what do you do after that? I don't know. I mean, if you're protecting 4 forwards, I'm interested in, number one, who those are. Like, is Colton Sissons going to be a part of the 4 forwards that are protected? Is Kyle Yarncroke going to be a part of the 4 forwards that are protected? Because, like, if either one of those 2 guys aren't, I know everybody's talking about Duchesne and everybody's talking about Johansson, and that may end up being the route the Predators go. But, like, if Colton Sissons isn't protected in the expansion draft, to me, if I'm Seattle, like, I'm looking to that contract being like, man, he's got 5 years left at $2.8 million per year. That's a pretty good deal. Like, that, to me, would be a pretty ripe candidate for expansion if I'm Seattle.
And there's also, on the Carrier front, I know I'm a little confused on that. So there's a formula, right, for him in terms of games played.
Yeah, and I need to look. I'm not even sure that he would be eligible to be selected.
It's right. It's close,
yeah.
I think. I was talking about this with Adam Vingan, and there's like the formula, but then it's like last year. I mean, I guess I would not expect him to be plucked, even if he was. But who knows? I continue to like him, in terms of moving forward as well. I really like what he's doing out there. But yeah, I think you're right. I think it's going to be 4-4-1, and I think you can lock in Forsberg, and you can probably lock in Arvidsson, and then it gets interesting.
Yeah, and remember, I mean, Eeli Tolvanen not eligible.
Yes.
So you don't have to worry about protecting him.
But does it mean that it won't be asked many, many times?
Yes.
And by the way, UC Saros.
I think he'll probably be protected.
That was the one. Oh, man, from a few years ago, right?
Yeah.
That was the
Saros. Is Saros eligible for the expansion draft?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got asked a few times.
Adam Vingan about lost his marbles on Twitter about that.
I don't know if there's
that happens a lot with Adam Vingan.
Yeah, it does. So here we sit. I mean, we know the situation heading into this weekend. If you're a Predators fan, you are wearing your Tampa Bay Lightning jersey tomorrow for them to get it done against the Dallas Stars. in regulation, because and remember, if the Stars get a point tomorrow, they're still technically alive. Now they'd be on life support at that point, but technically they are alive.
Hey, I mean, that's my Newt Rockne speech, for them. Get 1 point, and then it's
2 against Chicago.
They don't want the rest of this outcome. Them with 2 against Carolina, us with 2 against Chicago. Get 1 point. Hang in there, and you are still alive for real.
Well, by the way, it's also like, I think since he's come back these last 2 games, you see how important Tyler Seguin is.
Yeah.
I mean, he scored twice in the 2 games since coming back. Rick Bowness, Stars head coach, was talking about last night. He's like, yeah, if Seguin was here the whole year, we wouldn't be in this position. I'm like, okay, well, duh. But it's what happened, buddy. It's the hand you were dealt. So, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how they respond to Tampa. I mean, they had to come into that game last night knowing that basically their season's on the line. And Tampa Bay, they just wiped the floor with them. It was 6-2. I know they got a couple empty netters in there. But Tampa Bay, they were in control of that game. And the problem is, they don't need a whole lot of room. Like, one point I looked, and it was either late in the second period or early in the third, and the shots were 19-14 in favor of Dallas. But Tampa had scored 3 times. They don't need a whole lot to get out there and score. Ottinger in net, which surprised me. They'll probably go with Hudobin on Friday, would be my guess. If you're the Predators, you're pulling hard for the Tampa Bay Lightning to get that done in regulation. But if they don't, how concerned would you be at that point if you're a Predators fan, if Dallas remains alive after the game on Friday, based on the schedule? And you've also got to factor in Carolina, what happens with them tonight too. How concerned would you be at that point?
Well, concerned, but you know what? It's also okay, well, earn it then.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, let's see it. Look, we know Carolina, Tampa Bay, and Florida are all better than Nashville. But you should be able to beat a team
at some point.
Once in an 8-game set against them. So, yeah, you'd rather just have it be over Friday without having to do anything. But I think there's also a little bit of, okay, they stepped up to the occasion with Dallas last weekend. They've had other big games and big moments. There's still that point that they lost in Chicago that could still be a factor here. If they had
Absolutely.
that point, if they had that point.
At that point, Dallas has got to win outright.
Has to win.
Yeah, on Friday.
Yeah, in regulation. It just has to win. But I think there's a little bit of also, okay, if you think you can do anything in the playoffs, then here you go. Here's a high-pressure game against the team you're going to have to do it against probably.
Yeah. I think it's for sure. If you got to beat them at some point. So, look, I look at this matchup. I think a lot of Predators fans right now, if it gets to where they're still alive, and I'm talking about Dallas on Saturday, you'll have a lot of Predators fans shaking in their boots. I heard from some last night oh my goodness, now they got to beat Carolina. They're in trouble. They're not going to be able to do it. At some point, you've got to find a way to win a big game against Carolina. Otherwise,
why do you want to go to the playoffs?
What are we doing here?
Right.
Yeah, what are we doing?
If you think they have no chance, then why do you even want to watch them in the playoffs? Right? It's interesting because the whole Carolina thing, really, if you're a Preds fan, you should want them to lose tonight, right? Because if they lose tonight, then Tampa Bay wants to win on Friday, tomorrow. If they win tonight, Tampa Bay has no incentive for playing Dallas.
You still tie them. I'd have to look at exactly what the tiebreaker would be.
Tampa Bay is still playing for home ice against Florida, though.
That is true.
Yeah. For whatever that's worth, which may not be a ton, I suppose. But if Carolina loses tonight, Tampa Bay sees the opening,
It's
right?
a raucous environment down there in Florida. You want that home ice advantage.
Yeah.
Yeah. They throw rats and things in the playoffs.
That's true. They do throw the rats.
Whatever percentage they have down there, whether it's 50 or 60%, it kind of looks like normal in Florida.
Yeah, wow. Shots thrown by Ryan Porth. I like it. When we come back, speaking of shots thrown, I threw a couple out there on Twitter yesterday defending Tom Wilson. It made a lot of people mad. People were really mad at me, and people were really mad at Tom Wilson. We'll discuss that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth. They're with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. It was a crazy game last night between the Washington Capitals and the New York Rangers, all stemming from the incident on Monday night where Tom Wilson punches Pavel Buchnevich on the ice after the game, or not after the game, in the middle of the scrum, and then takes down Artemi Panarin, causing Panarin to receive an injury. He's out the rest of the season, which the rest of the season for the New York Rangers is like 2 more days. But yes, he's out the rest of the season. And that led to a crazy span of events yesterday. We'll get to that here in just a second. But, Joe, I did make people mad all day on Twitter yesterday. Basically, I don't know if – I guess it is defending Tom Wilson yesterday, which makes me kind of feel sick because, quite honestly, I don't even really like Tom Wilson all that much. I think he crosses the line a lot. I think in this particular instance, the decision made by the Department of Player Safety was the right one. He got a $5,000 fine. I've watched the play at this point 125 times. It looks bad. I watched the play, every detail of it. I don't think it was a sustainable play. And I think if it was not Tom Wilson that makes this play and takes down Artemi Panarin the way he did, and the scrum, what happened with Buchnevich, all these things, we're not even talking about this. This is a play, a scrum that happens on a nightly basis. I don't even think we're having this discussion if Tom Wilson's not the player involved. Now, I realize that's why people are so passionate about this, because Tom Wilson is involved and he's crossed the line many times. But to me, you cannot suspend someone if the play itself does not warrant a suspension. When you can factor in his history is you determine the play is suspendable, and then you say, all right, this is a suspendable play. This is a repeat offender for a guy who's been suspended at this point 5 times in his NHL career. Then you throw the book at him, and it's a 20-game suspension at that point. That's to me when the history of the player comes into play, is after you've determined the play is suspendable, not before you've determined the play is suspendable.
I think that you judge him differently because of what he is and what he's been. So I'm going to take the side of your Twitter antagonists. And look, you are absolutely right that there are worse plays, but I didn't think this was nothing either. I mean, it looks worse. It's one of those things where if you look at it closely, you know, okay, it wasn't quite as bad as I thought at first. At first, I was like, oh, my God, this is disgusting.
Yeah.
Which is how the Rangers still perceived it and talked about it afterward. I just, look, the
Fired
guy –
people over it, yes.
well, but that's apparently not, right?
That's the story you want to spin on it.
Yeah, you don't think – you don't
I
buy
don't
that?
buy that.
You don't buy that?
No.
Okay.
Anytime James Dolan's involved, I don't buy stuff.
Yeah, well, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, it seems like so far the reporting on it has been that they were going to fire those guys. But whatever, regardless, I think that he should be judged differently because of what he is and what he's been. And I think that when you do something over and over again, and it happens, this happens in other leagues with certain players who all of a sudden the punishment is way more for something that someone else, if it's their first offense, gets way less of a punishment. I think that's fine. I also think, and this is different, and this is the league. I mean, the fact that your max fine is $5,000. I mean, I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that be able to be elevated. You know, to actually hit someone a little bit in the pocket. I mean, $5,000 for a professional athlete is your max fine. But that's separate from this specific issue. I would have suspended him because of who he is.
I have no problem with the punishment of who he is coming into play if you determine the play is suspendable. I don't want to get into a league where you're suspending guys just because of who they are with the play not being suspendable. Now, people think the play is suspendable, and that's fine. Like, if you watch that Tom Wilson play and you think he should have been suspended for it, I have no problem with that. I'm not saying you're absolutely wrong. I watched the play. I didn't think it was a suspendable play. Okay. I've had multiple people in multiple NHL organizations that I talked to yesterday tell me it wasn't that bad.
Okay, so you would agree it's borderline then?
It's borderline.
Okay. Well, I think borderline, Tom Wilson, you're out. GTFO, because you're Tom Wilson. You know? Borderline to me, I err toward, maybe some people it's not suspendable. That guy, it is.
I will say this. It led to an absolute gong show last night on the ice. There were 6 fights in 4 minutes to begin the game, including off the opening faceoff, which was awesome. And there were some people complaining about that on Twitter last night. I was like, okay, you're all watching this game that you otherwise would not be watching. So what are we doing here?
Yeah, do you want this to wait until mid-third period?
Yeah, I mean, come on. So, I mean, there's fights all over the place last night. Last night's game between Washington and New York was kind of crazy because it had everything to it. I mean, Tom Wilson left the game with an upper body injury, which Peter Laviolette said after he's magically okay now.
But by the way, when the Capitals, I think it was the Capitals PR Twitter account tweeted that out, the replies were hilarious.
Yeah. Well, that was nice.
Vingan had the big all caps wink.
Yes. So an upper body injury sustained for Tom Wilson last night. You had that. You had Pavel Buchnevich gets thrown out of the game and cross-check Anthony Mantha right in the face last night, which, by the way, more of a suspendable play than Tom Wilson did last night, which a lot of people on Twitter that I got into it with didn't want to hear.
See, now that's a fair point. Like I'm with you there. If the worst play is the worst play. People have to be able to see that.
But they don't. That's kind of my problem with this whole thing. And then you got TJ Oshie, who just lost his father this week, who passed away. TJ Oshie comes back last night and has a hat trick. So you have like all this goonery going on around the game, and there's fights galore, and people are taking shots at each other after the whistle. And then you have like a great story in sports, the best story we've seen all week, TJ Oshie coming back in after his father dies and gets a hat trick and sitting there crying on the bench because of how emotional it is. It was like all over the spectrum last night in Madison Square Garden.
The NHL in a nutshell.
Yeah. It's pretty much what it was.
A lot going on with that one.
And Peter Laviolette, former Nashville Predators coach, now head coach with the Washington Capitals, discussed fight night at Madison Square Garden last night. Here's what former Preds coach Peter Laviolette had to say.
Peter, what's the latest on Tom Wilson? And was that kind of precautionary, just given the way the direction the game was going? Just go to the locker room, take care of your hand, and we'll take care of everything else.
Yeah, it's upper body. He should be fine.
You played hockey in a different era when there were stuff like this. Did even the penalties and just was this even kind of over the top for everything you've seen in your life?
I think it's just you don't see it that much anymore. And so, like I said, this is the game that was dealt to us, and I thought our guys responded well. Like I said, we were disciplined, and there's things that you have to do out there, and I thought we did it. We kept our cool, won the game. That I said before the game, that was kind of our focal point to make sure that we got the 2 points, and that you didn't look back in the rearview mirror and not make that the priority tonight.
Oh, Lavi. Same old.
Now that's more like the Laviolette than I remember. And enjoying Washington. Usually we're seeing all this fun stuff from him and actual quotes, but
no part of that body last night.
Yes. Upper body.
He'll
probably be fine.
He's probably okay.
Yeah.
His upper body last night. Way to go, Peter Laviolette. That was something.
Yeah.
It is interesting. Like, we don't see – that's the first time I remember seeing a line brawl in a long time. It's basically what it was to begin the game last night. Hey, little old-time hockey out there. I mean, good on the Rangers. Obviously, the Rangers felt very strongly about this. We read off the statement yesterday that they released. There have been kind of conflicting reports on the president and GM being fired. Wyshynski came out first and said it had nothing to do with that, and then said he had people tell him that they're not so sure about that. Maybe it did have something to do with apparently the president and the GM not being on board with the statement released by the Rangers yesterday. Obviously, they felt very passionately about this, very strongly about it. There was, Peter Laviolette can talk about, the goal being 2 points all he wants, and I'm sure that's the goal. That was not the goal for the New York Rangers last night. It was very clear what they wanted to do right from the start.
Yeah, and also, the game we were dealt, well, you had a hand in the fact that this was the game that resulted.
It was expert-level phrasing there.
Yeah, the game that was dealt to us,
This is where the 2-game series throughout the year really contributed to this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no doubt.
If there was 2 months in between the 2 games instead of 2 nights,
you'd have seen something, but it wouldn't have been to that level.
Right.
Yeah.
No question. Kind of when you think about it, going into the year, we talked about that. Yeah. Like, how could stuff like this be different in that scenario? Almost surprising there's not as much. But to your point, when's the last time we saw something like that on puck drop?
It's been a minute.
Yeah.
That's
one
of
my all-time favorite
94 NHL stuff right there.
Well, one of my all-time favorite, Bob Probert, Ty Domi, baby.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes. Right away.
Just get it over
boom,
with.
Let's go.
That's right. When we come back, we will switch gears, get into the Tennessee Titans looking at two key areas on defense following the draft and free agency. Who do you have more confidence in, the pass rush or the secondary for the Titans? We'll get to that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode live from the Wholesaling Studios, powered by RumbleOn.com here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, hour number 2 of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Streaming live on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch as well. Taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. We'll be joined later this hour at 7:30 by Nashville Predators head coach John Hines. Looking forward to that conversation coming up with him. Ben Arthur from the Tennessean at 8:45 covers the Titans for the Tennessean. And Hal Gill, Preds radio analyst, dropping by at 9:30. Joe, speaking of the Tennessee Titans, here we are. We're past the opening part of free agency. Obviously, the NFL draft has come and gone as well, and the Titans have made lots of changes, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Adoree Jackson gone, Malcolm Butler gone. You brought in Bud Dupree. The draft selection of Rashad Weaver, Caleb Farley, obviously, Elijah Molden as well. This team going to look pretty considerably different on the defensive side of the ball next season. The question that we've posed today is, who do you have more confidence in after free agency? Is it the pass rush that was so abysmal last year, or is it the secondary, which looks a lot different, especially with a lot of young guys coming in there? Christian Fulton. You've got Caleb Farley, hopefully healthy and able to go. Elijah Molden as well. So, Joe, as you look at the position groups on defense for the Titans, as you examine the pass rush, as you examine the Titans secondary, which of those two do you feel better about if you're a Titans fan heading into this season, as the roster stands right now?
Can I just say I don't know? Neither.
No, you cannot.
I would have said pass rush right after the draft, and I think it's much more likely that Rashad Weaver's on the team, and it's not like the number 3 is the most important thing, but it's kind of important to have depth. So now you have that thrown into whatever's going to happen. We don't know about Bud Dupree and his knee. He says he's going to be all good. That's a huge part of it. If I know that, I'll go there, because I do think Danico Autry helps the pass rush.
Sure.
And I think Danico Autry doing what he does should help Jeffrey Simmons. So, I could see, certainly, the pieces there for this to be way better. The other huge question on the other side of it, the secondary coverage, I still think that's a bigger question mark. I mean, Bud Dupree being okay from his ACL, to me, is still a bigger certainty than Caleb Farley and his back, regardless of what he says, and that's fine. I mean, I'm not saying I expect him to miss camp or anything like that, but I don't know. He had back surgery in March. So we'll see. And also, he's a rookie. And also, he's played one really good year at corner, and he's played 2 total, but he's a relatively new player to the
that was
position
2 years ago.
and didn't play last year.
Yeah.
So there's your first-round pick. Christian Fulton, what is he? I don't know. Elijah Molden, I like him. I mean, heck of a college player, heck of a value pick to me, but is he ready? I don't know. I think we kind of know what Kevin Johnson is. I mean, Janoris Jenkins is fine.
Has been fine.
Yeah, and he's on the other side, so that sometimes happens fast. I mean, I think that's how the Titans looked at Malcolm Butler, is that, last year they saw him not run as well. I thought, he was good, but there's a lot of questions. And then, Kenny Vaccaro, I think also, he's gone more because of money than anything, but he didn't have as good a year last year. Now you bring in Hooker. I think you're going to be fine there. Is Kevin Byard going to be back to being one of the best safeties in the NFL? I just asked every individual question I could come up with.
You did.
But I think there's a lot.
Do you have any thoughts on Rashaan Evans or Jayon Brown while we're doing this?
I can if you want.
No.
You go through all that. Obviously, I guess there's just more questions with the actual coverage of receivers to me.
I would agree with that. It's also, though, we don't know what's going to happen with Rashad Weaver, and I would agree with you. He's probably going to be on the team as we move forward here. But even if he is, you've got 3 guys at edge rusher that you feel pretty good about, and then after that, it's a bunch of whatever. Obviously they like Rashad Weaver, the player, because you've selected him where you did. And he had a range of grades on him. Some people thought he'd be at the end of the 2nd round, and he ends up going in the 4th round to the Titans there. So, I think when you factor in Bud Dupree, Danico Autry, as you mentioned, Harold Landry being there as well, I think you feel a lot better about the pass rush heading into this year than certainly you did at any point last year, especially towards the end. A lot of that, almost all of that, is going to be on the health of Bud Dupree and what that looks like. You're paying a guy $16.5 million to come in and be a difference maker for you and be not just a good player, be an elite disruptor for you when you're paying somebody that type of money. So you're hoping that he's able to come in right off the bat and that he's able to go in training camp and that the ACL is no longer an issue. I do think there are still lots of questions there as well in terms of what sort of an impact is Danico Autry going to have on Jeffrey Simmons? Can you get more pass rush from Jeffrey Simmons? Because to me, I think Jeffrey Simmons has been very good since he's coming here with the Titans. I don't think he's been as disruptive in the pass rush as you hoped that he would be. And I think a lot of that has been because of what's been around him. There's not been much there. And you're not expecting him to go out there and get, 8 sacks or anything like that. But I do think there's another level that he can get to in terms of the pass rush. The question I have is, can Bud Dupree and Danico Autry help unlock that for Jeffrey Simmons?
Yeah, and look, when you ask the question, pass rush or secondary, people, I think, automatically think about people coming off the edge.
Yep.
Man, there is nothing that you love more as a defensive coordinator, as a defense, than to have interior pass rush. And for as strong as Tampa Bay was, off the edge, how much, push did they get inside as well? I mean, they had it all. San Francisco, the year before that, had it all. And I agree. Jeffrey Simmons, I don't think he was healthy last year for the second half. And I think if you look at how much practice he missed down the stretch, I know some of that can be maintenance and everything, but typically you're gonna be out there a little bit more often if you're whatever the level is at the NFL second half of a season, 80%, And he's a key player, so maybe guys like that get a little bit more. Coaches are a little bit more likely to rest him, but I don't think he was totally healthy. They need him to be healthy, and they need him to be very good. And I do think that that's the intriguing thing is Autry and what that combination might do for them. And Harold Landry, he works his butt off. He hustles. He high-energy player, and he makes plays, and he can get better. He can take another step. That's a big thing for them too.
In terms of Harold Landry, I'm glad you brought him up because I'm interested to see, are the Titans going to want to bring him back? What's the price tag going to be on Harold Landry? You brought it up. He's a second-round pick, so there's no fifth-year option that you've got to pick up. What do you think the future looks like for Harold Landry if he's the same player that he's been and he comes out, similar production, he's playing almost every snap, you feel good about his durability, but he's not, an 8-9 sack guy. What do you think the future looks like for Harold Landry in terms of his next contract?
That's a great question. And actually, I do know this, that he knows this is a huge year for him,
sure.
Right? So that's I feel like obviously he's been everything they want him to be in terms of in the locker room and a guy who is an Iron Man. I mean, you can't overlook durability and what he's done. That means a lot. That's got to mean something to a GM. But I also look at John Robinson, and he's certainly not alone in this. And he's not a big fan of paying someone that second contract unless you're talking about a special player.
Yeah.
What could you get him for? It's an if he has this great year, well, now the market for him changes, and you're probably not going to sign him. Maybe
he did have 9 sacks in 2019.
He did. So I mean, he's a good player. Like, to me, if you can swing it, you'd rather keep him rather than keep having to replenish that. You still don't have a ton of depth, even with Weaver coming in, as we assume Weaver's going to get through his situation and be on the team. But that's a really interesting one with Harold Landry. I'm trying to think of, because it's kind of like a mid-level.
Yeah.
It's a mid-level contract kind of thing. I think Jayon Brown, for example, obviously a different position, but kind of maybe a similar situation a little bit. He didn't get what he was looking for out there, but things are going to get better. The cap's going to go up, and I think things will even start looking better. I mean, next year free agency should be better for guys. So is that someone that they're going to prioritize? I think it just so much has to do with him. And look, like, what about Dupree? Is Dupree great this year and looks like, the next few years of Dupree are going to be really good? Maybe you feel a little bit better about letting Landry go and going young there and going less expensive there and things like that. I don't know. I don't think the market would be great for Harold Landry right now, but it could be after next year or in the middle of next year.
When we come back, we'll continue this discussion, taking your thoughts on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. What do you have more confidence in after free agency and the draft? Is it the Titans pass rush or is it the secondary? Let us know on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Also, when the Preds have a weekday game this season, it's your chance to participate in Preds Pick to Click, brought to you by New Amsterdam Vodka. If you guess a Preds player that scores a goal in the game that night, you win a prize pack. The next chance to participate is Monday morning at 8:45. We'll be right back here on Robby and Rexrode, ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Thursday morning. Streaming live on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch. Right now, talking Tennessee Titans. Taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Who do you have more confidence in after free agency and the draft? Is it the Titans pass rush, or is it the secondary? Ron on the text line says, I feel there would be a lot of pressure on the defensive line and linebackers to bring pressure and get sacks. Our secondary is young, and offenses will test us and maybe even pick on the secondary if the D-line is no good and we can't cover. This better work out, or John Robinson will be on a hot seat. What do you think about that? There's a lot of people wanting to put J-Rob on a hot seat.
There is a lot of hot seat talk for someone who's had his level of success.
Yeah.
I think this is the least pleasing draft in the instant reaction of his 6 years. I also think that it was automatically going to be judged a little more harshly because of how bad last year's draft was.
I agree.
So that's part of it. But, yeah, look, hey, he has totally changed over this defense and the secondary in particular. But who are your mainstays? You had Simmons. Daquan Jones is out of there too. He's gone, and obviously Clowney and all those guys, but the secondary is very different. You got Jayon and you got Rashaan Evans for now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even when it hasn't been made over, you can see where it's going to be changing soon. So, I mean, everything John Robinson did, to me, says that he looks at last year and says, yeah, it was a personnel thing and not a coaching thing.
That's been certainly the route they've taken so far this offseason. I'm interested, let's say for the sake of argument, Caleb Farley is ready to go in training camp, and he is healthy, he's available, and he's out there. How do you line up in the secondary to begin the season if you're the Titans? Do you put Fulton back inside and leave Jenkins outside, Farley outside? Do you put Molden inside and Jenkins is your 4 at that point right from the jump? What do you think the Titans do here? And if Farley is healthy, do you think he's absolutely in there based on where he was drafted and the ability that we saw at college?
Well, is he healthy and the same guy? Because that's the thing that TD brought up. Okay, he could be healthy, he could be active and all that stuff, but he's a quick twitch athlete. He is an elite athlete. So is that affected at all? And that's another thing about this. It's not just can he play, can he still play at the highest level, the level that he played in 2019? If that's the case, I would think he'd be in there. Now, obviously, that also comes down to the system and
Sure.
how you're – but I would think so. And I would think that the way you said it first would be the way they would do it. I mean, Fulton has played inside. They brought him in to look at that. He was there some last year. That would make sense to me that Jenkins would start and Farley with Fulton inside. And then, I mean, I guess I'd be surprised if they came right out and had both rookies out there in the in the starting group. That'd be – I mean,
you essentially have 3 rookies at that point because Fulton, what does he play, 6 games?
Right. Yeah, we're 2.5.
That's pretty young.
Certainly, yeah, certainly 2.5. And it's all about camp. I mean, if those guys are great in camp and they figure it out. I mean, like Molden's is a guy, son of a pro and just like such a sharp dude. Like I wouldn't be surprised if Molden came in here and really elevated himself quickly. And he's like a slot guy. Then it would make for an interesting choice.
I think it's pretty clear that right now that's the long-term plan for the Titans is having those 3, Fulton, Farley, and Molden coming in, and that being the 3 that you roll with at corner. Now, how quickly can you get to that point? I don't know. I mean, that's going to be based on, how quickly does Molden come in and pick things up? Is Farley healthy? Is Fulton, where are you going to put him? Would you rather have Fulton inside? Would you rather have him outside? I mean, it reads to me with, Molden coming in, they probably want Fulton outside and moving Molden inside. So I'm interested to see how quickly they get to that. I think regardless, when you have a cornerback group that's as young as those 3 are, and you got the veteran in Jenkins, you got Kevin Johnson there as well, but when you have a cornerback room that's as young as it is, and this goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway, it is essential that Kevin Byard gets back to being Kevin Byard next year. Like, he's got to be that all-pro, Pro Bowl type of player at safety, because there will be times, and I know that, if Caleb Farley's healthy, he's got a lot of talent. Christian Fulton as well. They're talented guys, and they can run. But there are going to be times, as a rookie in this league, that you get picked on and that things don't go well for you. You've got to have Kevin Byard be back to the level that we've grown accustomed to seeing. If you don't, this secondary is going to really struggle next year. It's just the bottom line.
I agree. There is a little chicken and egg to that with Byard,
sure,
depending on how you want to look at it. I mean, I think he can be better if there's better pass rush, if his corners are better, right? And he can be a little bit more of an opportunistic player. But still, he's the leader back there of the secondary. He's one of really, I think, the two leaders / spokesmen for the team. Maybe three. I think you have to include Derrick Henry in that. But, like when the team usually does something now, it's Tannehill and Byard who talk, right?
Yep.
But he's got to be great. I mean, he really does. And we've seen him be great. And I think last year was partially circumstance, but that's, he's getting paid to overcome that and transcend that and help a defense, overcome it too. So that's what they need him to do this year. And if it is all better in front of him, then I think you got a great chance that we'll see vintage Byard.
I do too, but also like it's so important now that those two at safety stay healthy too, because behind them, I mean, you don't know. I mean, Dane Cruikshank, I think, is a good player, but he's hurt all last year. Like, what's that depth going to look like at safety? We spent so much time talking about cornerback, and obviously they've had a lot of changeover at that position, but I think your depth at safety absolutely right now has been diminished with Vaccaro out the door. You used to have Hooker as the 3, now he's the 2. And right now, I mean, it doesn't appear to me they've got a Hooker waiting in the wings at number 3. I know you brought in Brady Breeze, so all-name team Brady Breeze is going to come in, maybe give you some depth there, but it's important for Byard and Hooker to stay healthy this year.
Brady Rodgers Breeze,
yes.
I'm assuming that's his middle name.
Probably so.
Yeah, Cruikshank's a big deal. So I went on Twitter the other day, went through the 4th and 5th round picks because they were about to pick, and the Titans had done well. I mean, it's amazing. Like, they had one 4th round pick in John Robinson's tenure.
That is pretty incredible.
And it was Hooker. But even in the 5th round, and I think I counted like 5 of 8 as hits, but one of them I counted was Cruikshank. Now, Kaharski then comes at me and says, that's a hit? And I was like, well, I mean, I think it's, to me, like, you're a special teams player. Now, granted, you can't be injured for entire seasons.
Yeah.
Hasn't done a ton on defense, but when he's been called in, he's been able to be out there and be okay. Again, it's a 5th round pick, so what is a hit at a 5th round pick? But anyway, Cruikshank then found it and was like LOL or something like that.
I saw that.
But hey, man, I retweeted about it. But you know what? Well, if whatever you think a hit is, I would say if you're a good 3 this year and you're healthy and you're reliable and you can get out there in situations, then that cements hit. All right, now I'd say it is a good debate on him. Another guy to remember is Chris Jackson.
Yep.
Chris Jackson played, at corner last year. He's a guy who could potentially compete back there. Certainly another guy, he knows the defense, came right in as a rookie and really elevated himself because of what he did in camp. This is what you hope from Molden. Now, some people have thrown out there Molden. At Washington, the way they ran that secondary, Molden played a ton of safety.
Yep.
He was a slot/safety guy. He's not big. He's 5'9", 190 or whatever, but could he potentially, rotate back there, give you some kind of depth there? It's possible.
Ryan Porthers, you look at this roster now for the Titans defensively. What do you have more confidence in? Is it the pass rush? Is it the secondary as they head into the season, the roster withstanding currently as it is?
Secondary.
No hesitation.
I feel better about the secondary because there's not nearly enough depth at pass rush, and you're also banking on Bud Dupree to be fine after a torn ACL, which in today's world, players are typically fine after the torn ACL, but is he going to be ready for week 1? That is a question.
It is.
And now you have the whole Rashad Weaver stuff going on. I feel better about the secondary.
Well, I think, the ACL thing too. I mean, yes, you feel a lot better about that injury specifically now, But with edge guys, that's where I think you worry about it maybe a little bit more with the bend that's required, and you worry about it with bigger players on the offensive line too. I think Bud Dupree's going to be fine, but of the positions out there, this is where I would worry about it the most.
So you feel like you're not counting Danico Autry. That doesn't count in the discussion.
It helps for sure. It absolutely helps, and hopefully the presence of Autry helps Jeffrey Simmons on the defensive line as well. But the makeover that they did with the pass rush, and I'm specifically looking at edge, was not as much as what they did with the secondary. And I get it, there are questions in the secondary. But I do feel good about Hooker filling in for Vaccaro. And I think the odds are that you'll find at least 2 corners that are going to be starter worthy earlier in the season. Well, you don't know that at edge.
Yeah.
At least early in the season.
Well, I think you're right that the depth at least gives you some flexibility, competition. I mean, Jenkins, that's a 2-year, $15 million deal.
Yeah.
So he wasn't brought in here to sit around.
He was not.
But I'm sure if you're the Titans and it's like, hey, look at these young kids, that'll be probably a 1-year deal.
Right.
But at least they have that as a possibility. And certainly going in the draft, Kevin Johnson was starting for this team. The fact that he's not now,
it's good news.
Probably should make you feel better.
When we come back, we'll be joined by Predators head coach John Hines. That coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee, streaming live on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch as well. Right now, talking all things Nashville Predators. And to help us do that, we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Predators head coach John Hynes. John, what's going on, man? How we doing?
Doing really well. How about you guys?
We are doing great. Appreciate you taking time to join us this morning. I know it was a late night for you guys last night as well. John, what stands out to you about your team in the last two games against Columbus? What do you take away from that two-game set?
Well, I think we've got to be a notch better. You know, I thought we did some good things in the game, but I'd probably say for the full 60 on both nights we weren't at the level we need to be this time of year to be able to win. So I think that as a team, as individuals, I think we got to get to another level here over the weekend.
So, John, do you think that was anything to do with having the huge emotional win right before the series? Anything? I mean, I know you got to take everybody serious in this league, but obviously Columbus has had a tough year. I mean, what kind of things would you point to as you're trying to assess why it wasn't quite where you wanted it to be?
Well, I think you can't be a reactionary team. I think if we're going to win and get in playoffs and do something in the playoffs, you have to be a team no matter who you play that you're going to come out and dictate how you want to play and how the game is going to be played and the intensity level that the game is going to be played at. And I thought that we were a little bit reactionary in the last two games. Kind of went out, saw how it was going to go, and for us to be successful, you have to be a team that comes out and is going to dictate the terms in which the game is going to be played on. I didn't think we did that enough in the last two games.
John, what's the challenge like as a coach this time of year? I mean, you've got the last week of the regular season here, and you've gotten some guys coming back in the lineup. Fabro and Sissons coming back in yesterday. That's been the case over the last couple of weeks as well, with Forsberg coming back in. What's the challenge like for you and your staff putting a lineup together when people are getting healthier and you've got guys all throughout the lineup that have bought in at this point, trying to determine your lineup on a nightly basis at this point?
Yeah, it is challenging, but it is a good problem to have. It could because it means you got a lot of players that are playing pretty well, and you have guys that are coming back in. So I think the biggest challenge is when the players have come back in. Sometimes it's been because of injury. We have had to healthy scratch some players to give guys some opportunities to be able to play. I think the challenge now comes down to, probably to this weekend. And then if we wind up getting in, going into the playoffs, is you're going to have to make decisions now as your team gets more and more healthy that, who are the players that are going to play. And some guys have come in off of injury and played very well. Some guys have come in off of injury and been average. So now you're going to have those decisions where, who are you going to play when all the players come back? Who are the guys that are going to play, and it's got to be based on performance.
How did you feel Fabro did, and how important is it to get him back, John, and how do you view, in particular, your defense core and the juggling there?
I thought Dante played pretty well last night. I thought he was off for a while, so there was a little bit of rust in his game, but I thought coming in after that long of a break, he came in and played pretty well. I think in the D, we're going to have some hard decisions in that third pair right now, in our opinion. I think you have Gudbranson, Harper, Fabro, and Benning. I think that Gudbranson and Benning played pretty well, but we felt like we didn't want Harper sitting too long. He's been a big part of this process here with us, and then obviously Dante coming back in and playing. So there's going to be a little bit of some tough decisions coming up with the D-core on who's going to play, but whoever we decide, they're going to have to be the guys that get it done for us.
Predators head coach John Hynes on the line with us, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. And John, Tanner Jeannot finds his way on the board again last night, and it's been pretty incredible to watch. Not only the way he's played since he's gotten here with you guys, but also the journey that it's been for him to get here in the first place. I mean, he's taken more of an unconventional route to get to the NHL. What stands out to you about Tanner Jeannot and the way that he plays and what he's brought to your group in terms of the intangibles on the ice, but also the production as well?
Yeah, he's as you said, I think the story of him getting to the NHL is pretty exceptional. But the fact that he's here now, I think you see in his play. I mean, he's got a ton of character as a person. He's taken the hard way to get to the NHL. I think he's mastered every level he's been at, and he's faced a lot of adversity along the way. And I think now you're seeing a player here in the NHL that he takes nothing for granted. He's got a great work ethic. He's really rounded out his game in the process to get here, and he's NHL ready. He's physically ready. He's mentally ready. He's got a ton of substance to his game. He's a great competitor, and he's one of these guys that sometimes it's not how fast you get here, but when you get here, you want to be able to stay. And the way that he's playing and performing looks like he's been a big impact on our team. It's really funny too because you had that line. That line was doing really well, and then Matty Olivier gets hurt, and Tanner goes right in, and they don't miss a beat. So that's a good thing. He's been a big factor on our team. He's helped one of our most dominant lines continue to be dominant, and that's a great sign for him and for the team.
Talking to Predators head coach John Hines. John, Ellie Tolvanen has come back, has not had a ton of opportunities 5-on-5. What are you seeing from him? And then we did notice that Matt Duchene missed some time. Is there a concern health-wise with him right now?
No, I think with Ellie, he's with Tolvanen, there's got to be a little bit more there, 5-on-5. I don't think he's at the level right now that he was prior to his injury. So we're trying to work with him through that here to get the 5-on-5 and get the impact that he had, not just scoring, but he was, he's playing faster. I think he was impacting the game, along with his production. Thought he was a real hard player to play against. But he's just a little off that level, so hopefully we can help him get back to that level here over the weekend. And, with that, no, it was just, kind of the way the game went in the third period. It just changed a couple lines, got a couple guys different shifts, and that's how it went last night.
John, as you look at the situation now, you got Carolina coming up this weekend. Obviously, the Dallas taking on Tampa Bay on Friday night. As a coach, knowing that, if Tampa wins in regulation, you're in, do you watch the Dallas game? Do you pay much attention to it as a coach, or are you more focused on just kind of getting your guys prepared and doing what you've got to do from that standpoint?
I think the most important thing for all of us, the players and coaches, is to not be scoreboard watching. I think it's important that we have to get ready for the biggest game of the year, and we don't want to be sitting here counting on Dallas to lose. I think we got to understand that we didn't take care of business against Columbus. We got a day off here. We got to come back to the rink tomorrow, focused on getting better, focused on Carolina, and making sure that we're ready to play our best game of the year on Saturday. And if we do that, then our destiny is going to be in our own hands. But I think once you go down that other road, your focus isn't where it needs to be, and our focus needs to be on our game and on Carolina.
And, John, this is a question that's also probably not directly in what you're focusing on, but we have talked a lot about, Pekka Rinne, certainly different scenarios that could take place this weekend. But beyond that, just obviously a guy we haven't seen a lot from. We're not around you guys like in a normal year. From your perspective, what have you seen from him? And I guess, how do you feel like this has gone for him as his role has changed?
Well, he's been an unbelievable teammate, and I think it's been, as you said, I think the role has changed, but Pex has been, as you would expect, he's been a true professional. Comes in every day. He has a good attitude. He works extremely hard. Great teammate. He's in great support of Juice. Now, obviously, as the competitor that he is, he wants to play and wants to get in, and we would like to be able to do that. I think some of the circumstances, just with how Saros has played and how the schedule has set up, it's been difficult to do that. But when we need him, and we will need him, he'll be ready to go. But I think as you would expect, your probably outside thoughts on who Pekka Rinne is, how is he handling it, what is he doing? True pro, unbelievable teammate, great predator, and when called upon, he's gonna be ready.
John, last thing for you here, as you look ahead to this weekend coming up against Carolina, obviously both games at home Saturday and Monday, do you think there's a chance that Arvidsson could be available for you at any point to close out the regular season here?
There would be a possibility. I'll know more tomorrow, but all signs are pointing that he is moving in the right direction, and there is a possibility he could be available, yes.
Predators head coach John Hines has been our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. John, great stuff. Appreciate you taking time to join us this morning after a late night last night, and good luck this weekend against Carolina.
All right, thanks, guys. Appreciate you having me. Have a great day.
Appreciate you
Thanks,
joining
John.
us. John Hines, Predators head coach, our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. Lots of interesting things there in that interview from John Hines. We'll react to some of those coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Thanks to Predators head coach John Hines for joining us in the last segment. And, Joe, some very interesting comments there by John Hines in our interview in the last segment, including some thoughts on Eeli Tolvanen and Matt Duchene as well. Now, I pointed out earlier in the show that Matt Duchene had 3 shifts in the third period last night, including a gap of almost around 12 minutes or so in the third period where he wasn't on the ice. And, you know, my first takeaway of it was maybe there's something going on injury related. Maybe that's what kept him out of the lineup, and he was able to come back in towards the end of the game. We talked to John Hines about that, also got into Eeli Tolvanen's play as well, and he had some interesting comments in our segment, last segment with Predators head coach John Hines. Here's what he had to say.
I think with Eeli, he's, with Tolvanen, there's got to be a little bit more there, 5-on-5. I don't think he's at the level right now that he was prior to his injury. So we're trying to work with him through that here to get the 5-on-5 and get the impact that he had. Not just scoring, but he was, he's playing faster. I think he was impacting the game. Along with his production, thought he was a real hard player to play against. But he's just a little off that level, so hopefully we can help him get back to that level here over the weekend. And, with that, no, it was just, kind of the way the game went in the third period. It just changed a couple lines, got a couple guys different shifts, and that's how it went last night.
So that was John Hines discussing both Eeli Tolvanen and Matt Duchene. And, Joe, the takeaway I had from those comments on Duchene was when you're talking about it's just kind of the way the game went in the third period, doesn't sound like there's anything injury-related with Matt Duchene last night. It kind of sounds like he got benched for like 12 minutes last night in the third period. I find that to be very interesting.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's been a while since something like that happened, right?
Yeah.
Last year it happened quite a bit.
Yeah. It's an interesting timing for it, too. Well, last week of the regular season.
Yeah,
yeah.
And I agreed with you what you said earlier, which is that's something you do, in the midst of an 82-game season, you try to send a message or whatever. But apparently, now, of course, sometimes benching is not just send a message. It's like, okay, we're better double shifting this guy or that guy. I don't know. You tell me. Do you remember exactly what he did?
The only thing I can think of is the second goal by Columbus. Duchene was late closing out on the guy, and we talked about that. Whether or not that's a goal UC Saros would like to have back, maybe. But Duchene kind of got lost there in coverage, and he was late closing in on the shooter for Columbus. I can't remember exactly who the shooter was. Maybe it was Bjorkstrand, maybe? That's exactly who it was. Oliver Bjorkstrand scoring the second goal for Columbus in the game last night. If you go and watch the play, Duchene is kind of late getting there, and Bjorkstrand's got room to score. That's the only thing I can really think of. He had one shift in the third period, kind of 2 minutes in. And then if you look at the game chart, he went basically 12 minutes without seeing the ice again. And then when you got down late in the third period, he was back out there. But it sounds like Matt Duchene got benched for a little while last night.
Yeah, poor phrasing by me on the question to you, but that's also a good question, is what Duchene did. I was at, do you remember what Hines did in terms of how he juggled things?
Oh, no. I mean, I'd have to go back and look.
Yeah, just that Duchene was missing a bunch of shifts.
I'd imagine Forsberg was out there a lot. Matter of fact, I remember Forsberg being out there with Haula, and I was like, what's going on here? And then you look at the sheet, and Duchene's not out there.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, in some cases, you're trying to come back, you're going to start double shifting you're behind in a game, right? I mean, you're going to double shift some of your top players and just say we need as much threat as we can have on the ice. But still, you would think that Duchene would be one of those threats too.
Well, and especially because I think you would agree with this. I thought since Duchene's come back from injury, he's played pretty well for the most part. And I know some people just shudder at the thought of that, and I've had people the last couple of days tweet me about why is Duchene in the lineup, and this is only going to be more fodder for that as we move forward here now. Ooh. But I found that to be pretty interesting, talking about Matt Duchene there, that he just said it's just kind of the way the game went in the third period. That's a nice way of saying, yeah, he was on the bench.
Yeah, I hope that your tweet you just sent about this does not reach Facebook.
Oh, boy.
There
could be some takes.
Matt Duchene can never play another second for the Preds.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. John from Clarksville texting in. Forsberg was double shifting the whole time. Duchene was on the bench. He was. That's of the guys to double shift. He's at the top of the list. Yeah. So that's
again, hey, Forsberg, he's healthy. He's been out. Maybe he's got a little extra energy. You're behind, But why is Duchene the choice? Is there any chance that that's just how Hines thinks it fits best, and he's just the odd man out, or it's got to be punitive to some extent?
Yeah, let's go to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Philip in Franklin says, Hines said in the postgame Forsberg was playing too well to take him off the ice. Still puts a question on Duchesne, though. I mean, to Philip's point, I mean, if that's fine if you want to double ship Philip Forsberg.
There's other people.
Why is Matt Duchesne the one you're taking off?
Yeah, like there's other people.
Yeah.
And maybe or you could switch it around a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you could double shift him. He could take a shift with the Herd line if you wanted to, or take a shift with Yarncroke's line if you wanted to as well.
Although I wouldn't have. I mean, the Herd line they were creating stuff.
Yeah.
It's hilarious to say, but not touching that line.
No.
But yeah, you have other wings that you can move around a little bit to make sure you get Forsberg out there. Why is it just Duchesne?
It was interesting. I found those comments to be very interesting, and you asked him about Eeli Tolvanen as well, saying he's not quite at the level 5-on-5 that he was before the injury, not creating as much. And John Hines pointed out, not just offensively, but the speed in which he's playing the game. I do think that's been pretty noticeable from Eeli Tolvanen as of late. He is not quite at the same level that he was when, there was one point this year at the start of this streak where he was basically carrying this team offensively, and he's not been all that noticeable as of late.
No, and they need that. I mean, I feel like another thing about the last couple games is, just stretches that are too long without really creating enough offensive chances in 5-on-5. That's why guys like Tolvanen, guys like Duchesne, they've got to be Johansson.
Yep.
I mean, they've got to have a big hand in that. And it is wild, like you said. I mean, Duchesne 2 nights ago or 3 games ago, whatever, was lights out.
I think far and away the best player on the ice against Dallas. But now here we are. Third period, he's not playing.
Here we are.
Things can change in a hurry. I'm going to be interested to see how they – I mean, I don't think Matt Duchene's going to be out of the lineup next game. Like, I would be surprised.
You're going to get so many tweets between now and then about how he will be or should be or
well,
whatever.
And, he's pointing out at the end of that interview, it sounds like there's a pretty good chance Arvidsson could be back too, saying that there's a pretty good possibility he could be available. So, I mean, if Arvidsson's coming back in, like right now, who are you taking out? I mean, to me, the obvious one would be either Richardson or Cousins. I mean, Cousins is out last night. I would think you just take Richardson out, move Arvidsson in, maybe on that line, or maybe you move Tolvanen down, see if you can get him activated with Haula and Duchesne. But I don't know. Maybe they like the way Richardson and or Cousins is playing, and you do something else with the lineup.
See, here's the thing. Like, you don't right now do anything with the lineup because, you got to play the $8 million guy. You don't do that.
No.
You're doing your best possible lineup. I still think that Matt Duchesne, especially for a team that is not offensively prolific, is a guy who needs to be in there.
Yeah.
You need him in there, I think. You need him to play like he did against Dallas.
Yeah. Vince on Twitter says, I wonder how many overall points Duchesne has since joining the Preds. Well, I can answer that for you. He's got 53 since joining the Predators. 53 points, I believe, in 98 games.
Well,
not good enough.
That's not $8 million.
No, it's not. I mean, I think that's obvious at this point. He's not been worth the money up until this point. The question that you move forward with is, like right now, can he help you win as you continue to go down the stretch here? I mean, my answer on that has been yes. I still think that when you're icing your 12 best forwards, he needs to be out there. But, man, it's been something. I did not expect that to be the way that conversation went with John Hines.
Yeah, no, because I mean, like, I didn't notice him last night, right? But you can say that about a lot of guys. But obviously, a coach sees a lot more from the bench than anyone sees on television. But yeah, I didn't. I would have just assumed there was an injury there, and I feel like maybe the forward lines could be real interesting on Saturday, and could also be impacted by like Arvidsson's not going to be out there if Tampa Bay wins Friday.
You wouldn't think so. I mean, just get him healthy, ready to go for the playoffs. And look, I hear what John Hines is saying in the last segment. I think that's the way you've got to handle it if you're the Predators. Like if you're a player or you're a coach, like you've got to walk into tomorrow when you practice and Saturday when you're getting ready for the game. Like you got to walk into that game tomorrow from a preparation standpoint thinking, all right, this is it. Like, this is the big game that we need to win. We've got to win it. And then you react after that, like if Tampa Bay gets it done against Dallas. But you can't be worried about the Tampa Bay-Dallas game right now. Like, if you're a Predators player and you're going into practice tomorrow thinking, well, who cares? Tampa Bay is going to beat Dallas tonight. Probably not going to go well for you on Saturday night. That'd be my guess.
Yeah, no question. I mean, it's look, you got to focus on what you're doing. It's also not realistic to think that anybody's going to close
they'll be watching the game.
Yeah, they'll know what's going on, and it's going to have a tremendous impact on. I mean, Saturday's either a massive pressure game or a zero-pressure game.
Yeah.
I mean, it's based on something totally out of your control now.
102.5 The Game and T-Mobile have teamed up to give away a hockey home gating party. Text the word Preds to 615-737-1025. That's Preds to 615-737-1025. Now to enter for a chance to win a Dos Equis prize pack, which includes a case of beer, dessert from Nothing But Cakes, a T-Mobile prize pack, and food provided by 312 Pizza Company in Germantown. You must be 21 or older to enter. When we come back, we'll get back into the Tennessee Titans. There's a trade proposal that's been floated out there connecting the Titans to Aaron Rodgers. What do we make of that? We'll get into that next. This is Robby and Rexrode, live from the Wholesaling Studios, powered by RumbleOn.com, here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, hour number 3 of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Going to have Ben Arthur, covers the Titans for the Tennessean. He'll join us later this hour at 8:45. Preds radio analyst Hal Gill coming up at 9:30 as well. And also taking your thoughts on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. 1025. Now, Joe, as we know, Aaron Rodgers, a very popular topic of conversation in the NFL right now. What's his future going to look like with the Green Bay Packers? Does he have a future with the Green Bay Packers? Or at some point throughout this entire discussion, is it going to reach an impasse and Green Bay is going to be forced to move on via trade with Rodgers? We don't know. It's certainly not looking great for the Green Bay Packers right now. I listened to a 45-minute interview yesterday that Brett Favre did. That's how desperate I've gotten for this stuff.
Oh, good.
A 45-minute interview. Brett Favre. Listened to the whole thing yesterday.
Really love hearing all his thoughts on things.
It was great. Great to hear his thoughts.
Did he talk about sending private part pictures and text? Because he's a genius at that.
He left that part of it out. That did not get included.
What did he say? What did he say? Give me the breakdown of Brett Favre's.
He was trying to be as down the middle as he possibly could, but a lot about his situation got brought up and how he got into it with the Packers and the early retirement and the clash with Mike McCarthy at the time, and saying, you know, if he had to bet, Rodgers is not coming back. Said that he's stubborn when it comes to football, his family, his friends, and once he digs in, he's not budging. So he is convinced, and maybe convinced is too strong a word, but if he had to put money on it, Rodgers not coming back to the Packers.
How does Favre? Didn't Favre not say a word to him for years?
They're buddies now.
Him? Okay.
Apparently he texted Aaron Rodgers and asked him if he was going to end up playing for the Saints. And Rodgers said, "Hey, buddy, thanks for checking in on me. I don't think that's going to happen, but I'll touch base with you when all this is over."
Yeah, thanks for thanks for the text, bud. We'll talk to you sometime soon, okay?
That's exactly what he said.
Next time, ask my agent if you'd like to contact me.
Yes, thank you very much, Brett. We appreciate it. But that has led to a ton of speculation about where Aaron Rodgers could end up if the Green Bay Packers decide to move on and to trade him. Now, I would think, and I would hope, that AFC teams are probably at the top of the list here. Unless you just get something back you can't refuse, I have a hard time believing that the Packers are going to let him walk to an NFC team. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's just the way I read it. Bill Barnwell from ESPN has come out with trade proposals that he's put together for some different landing spots for Aaron Rodgers. And one of those teams that's included in this mix is the Titans. Now, Bill Barnwell also has included the Browns, the Broncos, the Raiders, the Dolphins, the Giants, and the Washington football team in this mix as well. But the Titans also on this list. And when it comes to what the Titans would give up, the Packers would receive Ryan Tannehill, a 2022 first-round pick, a 2023 first-round pick, in exchange for Aaron Rodgers and a 2023 fourth-round pick. This, again, coming from the hypothetical trade scenario for Bill Barnwell. What do you think about that? The Packers getting Ryan Tannehill and two first-round picks, and the Titans receiving Aaron Rodgers and a fourth-round pick. Do you pull the trigger on that if you're John Robinson and the Titans?
God, if you just took one of those first-round picks away, it'd be easy, you know? I would do it for Tannehill and a first. Tannehill and two firsts. I probably would still do it. I'm only doing it if I believe that I'm winning a Super Bowl, obviously. That's all. The only reason you do it. Like, this means this team is winning a Super Bowl this year with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. But you're talking about one of the best to ever play. Some of the, arm talent, everything you want. I see Bob already saying, please no with the Michael Scott gif. I mean, it's not going to happen anyway, so, right? I mean, I'm pretty sure that's not going to happen.
We don't think so.
Yeah. It's an interesting proposal.
Do you give more of a chance for the Titans to trade for Aaron Rodgers or the Titans to trade for Julio Jones?
I mean, I give basically zero for either, but I would say Julio.
Okay.
And you say what?
I say this entire conversation pains me, but I don't know. I mean, look, if it's out there and he's available, I think you'd be insane if you're John Robinson to not consider it. I mean, you're talking about one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. And in this piece that Barnwell has put together, he's talking about Tannehill, says he's been great for the Titans, but also points out, and this is going to get you going, he's averaged fewer than 7 yards per attempt in both playoff defeats. And while Tannehill wasn't dragging the Titans down in either game, he wasn't able to take them to the next level. We know that Rodgers has that in him. This would be a 2 or 3 year window to try to win with Rodgers and Henry as a devastating 1-2 punch on offense.
Yeah, gone through all of it with Tannehill. Hey, look, all the defensive Tannehill, the Tannehill thing is two different things. The run to the AFC title game, people are dumb. You're reading stats. Last year, fair criticism. He wasn't good enough. So that fuels people who want to look back again and say, what happened here? All he did was hand off. I still think you separate those things, and I'd still feel pretty good about Tannehill as my quarterback in a playoff game or as the starter over several years. But Aaron Rodgers is a different level of quarterback. I mean, no one can argue against that.
Mason on YouTube says, if Rodgers has a no-trade clause, I doubt he would okay a trade here because we only have Reynolds, A.J. Brown, and the ticket guy playing wide receiver.
Well, he's had one great receiver in the ticket guy for many years.
That's why we're in this situation.
Well, that's true. But still,
part of why we're having this conversation.
Well, how much of a draw for a quarterback? We always think about receivers, obviously, weapons, protection, offensive line. If I'm Aaron Rodgers, I like the Titans' offensive line.
Sure.
I want to make sure the right tackle position is shored up. But how much of a draw for a quarterback is a great running back? We don't think of it too much, but it's a weapon.
It's great. Yeah, I mean, he's got a pretty good one in Green Bay too, but it's not Derrick Henry. That's for sure.
Yeah,
but I mean,
good, but he's not Derrick Henry.
Exactly. He's not Derrick Henry. But I don't know. I mean, that's a good question. Like, look, I think the chances of the Titans being able to execute a trade to bring Aaron Rodgers here are about 0.0001%. I mean, it's not very high in terms of the likelihood that I think this will happen. But if that's the offer, I have no problem if I'm the Titans giving up 2 first-round picks to bring in Aaron Rodgers to see if he can win in the next couple of years. Also, I mean, you could try to extend Aaron Rodgers. That's part of why they're in this conversation as well with Green Bay, is because he's not gotten an extension.
Some of these guys play. They play for a while. Justin Wolf on Twitter says, it's an upgrade at QB, but is it worth upgrading for maybe 2 years for 2 first-round picks? Absolutely not. I do feel so much better about 1 first-round pick. But you're
not getting Aaron Rodgers for 1 first-round pick.
And Tannehill. He's a good player.
It doesn't matter.
Well, I will say, look, if you make this, whatever you do, if you make this move, you're making this move only because you think you are winning a Super Bowl with him right now. Is that not worth it?
Yeah, it's worth it.
I mean,
100% worth it.
Yeah. I mean, like, if you actually think that it's going to do it for you, then great. Oh, no, we want to be like 9-8 and 10-7 over a period of time, not win a Super Bowl. I mean, Justin, if you think you can win a Super Bowl, then of course it's worth it. Now, will you? I don't know.
My buddy Matt on my text line, who's a big Packers fan along with me. Don't get Nashville's hopes up. No chance Rodgers goes to the Titans. No chance you got a better shot at Jordan Rodgers. I don't think you're making that trade for Jordan Rodgers.
It's an interesting Brady Rodgers breeze.
Yes.
Yeah, you never won a Super Bowl, so there's
worth
no guarantee.
No, but it's worth. It would be. I wouldn't even think twice about giving up 2 first-round picks and Ryan Tannehill for Aaron Rodgers. I'd be like, where can I sign this document? Bring him here. I mean, zero hesitation if I'm the Titans. Now, also, like if I'm the Packers, probably going to take a little bit more than that. But that's me.
Okay, so if you let's pretend that you're Gutenkust, your favorite dude in the world.
Who knows what he'll do? I mean, he's liable to trade him for a 6th-round pick.
But I mean, put yourself in those shoes. You're him. So what are you demanding?
Well, I mean, how attractive is Ryan Tannehill coming back if your plan apparently is for Jordan Love, right? I mean, that's how you're in this situation. You drafted Jordan Love. At some point, he's going to have to play.
He's on a rookie deal. So you're okay. You can pay another quarterback.
Yeah. But are you bringing Ryan Tannehill back to come sit on the bench in favor of Jordan Love?
No.
I don't think so.
No. But right now, if Jordan Love can't be active as a rookie, then don't you feel like you got to have a starting quarterback coming back?
Yeah, that's the entire point here. How are they in this situation?
Well, sure, but we agree that he's screwed this up. But you're in his shoes. So what are you asking for back?
Devontae, I don't know. It's something to go along with Devontae Adams, A.J. Brown.
Oh, geez.
You making that trade
Yeah,
for the Titans?
No.
Oh,
Derrick
man.
Henry?
Yeah, Derrick Henry.
Tannehill Henry?
Yeah.
What if you're the Titans? Would you take Rodgers and Aaron Jones for Tannehill and Henry?
I don't know. What about you, Porth? Would you take that? That hurts your soul just thinking about it.
That hurts my soul so bad.
Rodgers
probably.
and Jones for Henry and Tannehill.
Probably.
Oh, that's tough.
Because you're getting Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
I mean, I love Derrick Henry, but it's Aaron freaking Rodgers.
Yeah, I'd probably do it too, but
would hurt.
It's yeah.
You just crushed my soul.
I know.
In here.
He's just this has got him uncomfortable just thinking about it. Let's introduce our poll question of the day at 1025 The Game on Twitter. Off of this article from Bill Barnwell and his hypothetical trade offer of Aaron Rodgers in the fourth rounder to the Titans for Ryan Tannehill and 2 first-round picks in 2022 and 2023, would you do that trade if you were general manager John Robinson? You can vote at the poll at 1025 The Game on Twitter. So far, Joe, 54% say no, they would not do that trade if they were the Titans. 46% say yes. Are you surprised that in the early returns, 54% saying nope, not doing that trade?
Yeah, I am surprised.
I'd want to know the reason why for the people saying no. Is it because you feel like Tannehill can win a Super Bowl, or is it because you don't want just 1 or 2 years of Rodgers?
I think some people just don't like Aaron
the first round picks.
Yeah, that's got to be some of that's got to be Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I don't really like him either personally, but I'll take him as my quarterback. But yeah, maybe the Tannehill hate is not
as strong as we thought.
Not as strong as we thought.
We'll continue this discussion when we come back, taking your thoughts on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025 The Game. Join 102.5 The Game this Saturday from 10 to noon for the Nashville SC pre-match party outside the Hard Rock Cafe downtown. Party before the match on Broadway and get some game swag, plus register to win a pair of tickets to an upcoming Nashville SC home game. Then head over to Nissan Stadium for the 12:30 match. Get your tickets now for Nashville SC at NashvilleSC.com and tune into the game on ESPN 94.9. Pre-game show will begin at 12:15. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you, discussing a hypothetical trade scenario that Bill Barnwell from ESPN has thrown out there involving Aaron Rodgers to the Titans. The Packers would get Ryan Tannehill and a first-round pick in 2022, a first-round pick in 2023 as well. The Titans would receive Aaron Rodgers and a 2023 fourth-round pick. Taking your reaction on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Matt from Camden texting in, does it really matter if we trade our first-round picks, especially the way J-Rob has been using them the past couple of years? Wow.
Every discussion can be
goes back to J-Rob.
Can be a vehicle to throw shade at J-Rob.
Joe on the text line says Tannehill and Evans and a first-round pick for Rodgers. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, the Packers are jump all over that one.
I assume he means Rashaan Evans, not Darrington Evans.
Put them both in there, and
matter.
it still doesn't matter. I got some intel from Katie Rexrode. Aaron Rodgers' fiance and Reese Witherspoon are BFFs, so she might be pushing for Nashville.
Yeah, there is a little Shailene Woodley connection here. Maybe so. Aaron Rodgers loves the Kentucky Derby.
Not far.
Not that far.
Soon.
Maybe he likes steeplechase here.
Soon, Reese Witherspoon and Shailene Woodley will be spotted somewhere in town.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Heidi from Dixon texting in, I don't want Rodgers. He'll just take away Derrick Henry's opportunities. Him and Tannehill both choke in the playoffs, so what's the point? I mean, Aaron Rodgers has won a Super Bowl. There is that. Heidi,
there's so much to unpack with that text. You packed a lot into one text there that has a lot of things wrong in it.
It has been a while since he won the Super Bowl.
Okay, he's won a Super Bowl. And he's gotten teams that have no business being in the playoffs to the conference title game. It's been pretty good.
Yeah.
The guy can win.
Yeah.
He's been a failure for the last decade in the playoffs.
There you go. That's what he's been.
And yet you're over here begging for him to be traded.
Porth is sitting here, trade away Henry. Trade away Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill for Aaron Rodgers.
And meanwhile, he's a choker. So which is it?
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Got a text that says that's 2 first-round picks that the general manager can't blow. There's a whole lot of that on the text line right now. I have no problem giving up the first-round picks because of John Robinson.
There's a theme. My text line, Dane from Nolensville, back-to-back Super Bowls, that would be bleeping awesome to get him, even though he's a bleep bleep. So there you go.
People don't like Aaron Rodgers.
I feel like Aaron Rodgers, I'm not a huge fan. He's smug.
I love it.
I think, well, sure you do. You're a Packers fan. I've not liked the Packers my whole life. Although I'll take Aaron Rodgers over Brett Favre, all day. But he's just smug. It's not like he's that bad, right?
His teammates love him. That's really what the end of the day, what matters. Like, his teammates love him. Now, outwardly, he is smug. Do I think, and we had Charles Robinson on Tuesday talking about this, I think he really likes to be in control of what the message of him is and what the perception of him is in the public. He is very calculated in everything that he does and everything that he says. I mean, if you go watch the weekly interviews he does with Pat McAfee, I mean, he's got a ton of personality. He's a funny guy, but there's no question he has got a very high opinion of himself, understandably so, and that he is very concerned about what his public image is. I don't think there's any question about that.
Yeah, to me, all I care about is, so Peyton Manning, who I'm a big fan of Peyton Manning, college and pro. I still think the best quarterback at his best that I think I've seen in the league. And talk about a guy who screamed at teammates,
Yeah.
And at times it was like, man, but whatever. He's so good, and overall that you got that credibility to do that. If a quarterback isn't wrecking a locker room, I don't care. I don't care if he's plus he seems like he's an all right Jeopardy host,
Yeah, pretty good.
There's a little smugness that goes with that job.
There is. Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Sam texting in, are we seriously arguing about if we want the MVP of the league If you can get Aaron Rodgers, there is no way that you don't try to pursue that if you're the Titans.
Amen.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, you make a call or take a call or whatever. Of course you do. Now, earlier reports just said, that must mean you think Tannehill can win a Super Bowl. I 100% think Tannehill could win a Super Bowl. I mean, I can prove it to you. There are quarterbacks who've won Super Bowls who are not nearly as good as Ryan Tannehill. But still, Tannehill is on a different tier than Aaron Rodgers.
But could Tannehill carry his team to a Super Bowl like Aaron Rodgers can do?
Hasn't in a long time? Yeah. No, I mean, I
I'm
think
not going to stand for this disrespect.
I don't think Tannehill would have to be on like the 85 Bears with 3 All-Pro receivers and Derrick Henry to win one. But to your point, no, I don't think he's that guy. But I mean, Jimmy Garoppolo was one missed throw from winning a Super Bowl. Is Tannehill as good as Jimmy Garoppolo?
I would say so.
There's a lot of examples.
And Jimmy G had a great team around him.
They did.
Yes.
And I think that it would take that for Tannehill to win a Super Bowl.
Yeah. I mean, it would take it would take him playing a little better and a couple breaks in Kansas City, and they had a shot to do it.
Well, somebody on the text line pointed out, it was Mason on YouTube, that maybe Rodgers wouldn't want to be here if it was just A.J. Brown and Josh Reynolds as your 1-2. I mean, Aaron Rodgers turned Allen Lazard into a number 2 wide receiver. Allen Lazard is not a number 2 wide receiver. Marquez Valdez-Scantling is not a number 2 wide receiver. And he's turned those guys into some pretty good players. Now, he also does have Devontae Adams, and that helps. Having A.J. Brown, that would help here.
Yeah, I feel like those two would do all right together.
Yeah, so I think they'd be fine. But I think this idea that he would look at Josh Reynolds and just be like, I don't know about that. He'd be okay, I promise.
Yeah. How do you compare Josh Reynolds to those two guys?
Josh Reynolds is better than both those guys.
I feel like Valdez-Scantling he's got some talent.
He's got some talent. I mean, he leads the league in drops every year. But yeah, he's got some talent.
Right. He's explosive.
Yeah.
He's athletically explosive, probably more than Josh Reynolds.
I would agree with that. Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Got a texter that says, so pretty much if you don't make the Super Bowl, you're a choker, according to Heidi and Dixon. So somebody taking a shot at Heidi on the text line.
Wow. How about that, Heidi? I got to go to our text line. I'm going on my text line.
You're all about the text lines.
Yes.
It's too much now. I kind of wish I hadn't done this.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Brian in Portland texting in, I don't want Rodgers, but a good trade would be Tannehill, Evans, Fulton, and a first for Rodgers and Tunyon. You are not getting back Aaron Rodgers and Robert Tunyon.
That'd be
not
fun.
for that package.
That'd be Funyon. Did you read Ben's text?
I did not. I don't think
Make
so.
it 3 first-rounders, and I'll still sign up for it. Rodgers would at least try to win the game if Henry gets stuffed in the playoffs. All right, Ben. I was with your text at the beginning. Yes, Tannehill just said, forget it.
Is that the same Ben that is so down on John Robinson?
That's the same Ben that's down on John Robinson and Ryan Tannehill, yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
Bob on Twitter says, Rodgers is toxic, plus the current state of this franchise literally can't afford to give up 2 firsts. Lastly, adding Rodgers doesn't win a Super Bowl. We're not good enough in other areas. Look.
Well, if you're right, then fine. But are you right?
Rodgers done a whole lot of winning for a guy that's toxic.
Yeah, I think toxic is too much. I mean, is anybody – look, I don't think Rodgers has handled this well. I don't like how he's handled this. But, can you not have sympathy for him with this idiot GM?
Yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous that it's even in this situation. So, look, is Aaron Rodgers a bit of a drama queen? Yeah, he is. Is he a great player? Yeah, he is. And this is not something that's just happened this last offseason, that it's gotten to this point with Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. This has been building for years, and now it's reached a point where Aaron Rodgers has had enough. I mean, it's not like this just happened after the NFC title game in the last 3 months. He said, you know what? I'm done with the Packers. I don't want to be around these people anymore. He is not a fan of this new GM. This has been building for the last 3 years.
And so I think that some of these responses are just personal dislike for Aaron Rodgers, which, again, I get it, but toxic is too much. I mean, when you say the current state of this franchise, Bob, can't afford to give up 2 firsts, I agree, unless you're winning a Super Bowl, which is the entire point of all of it.
Right.
something that you've never done. If you are in a go for it situation, then go for it. Yeah, that's what I said about Clowney last year. And with the information we had, I think there was no alternative but to go pay Clowney, and they got into a big recruiting battle and they got him. That was going for it. Didn't work out.
We'll continue this discussion when we come back, taking your thoughts on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Also get into Ryan Tannehill a little bit more as well. What's it going to take from Tannehill to turn some of these haters that we've seen on the text line around? We'll get into that next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Celebrate Mom this Mother's Day with a gift of a 1.5-hour picnic-themed style photo shoot with Mackenzie Lee Photography at Centennial Park. Picnic setup, sips, and snacks will be included. Not only will you enjoy a fun and beautiful park picnic with your family, but you'll also receive 60-plus digital photos to remember it. Go to the Game Nashville contest page and enter to win today. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Discussing a hypothetical trade scenario that's been thrown out there by Bill Barnwell from ESPN, in which the Titans would get Aaron Rodgers and a fourth-round pick in 2023 from the Packers. The Packers would receive Ryan Tannehill and 2 first-round picks, one in 2022 and one in 2023. Lots of differing opinions on this as well. That's the subject of our poll question of the day at 1025 The Game on Twitter. Would you do this trade if you're John Robinson and the Tennessee Titans? And it's interesting. So far, the responses in the poll question, 153 votes are in. 60% say no. 40% say yes. So, Joe, it's going the other way. More people saying no. They would not do this trade to bring in Aaron Rodgers. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
I think that's insane.
I'm that's one of the most surprising poll results I think we've had. It's got to be Rodgers hate / Tannehill love.
Yeah.
That I didn't realize was as intense as it
Tannehill,
is.
very popular. Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Michael texted in, I know loyalty doesn't count for much in this business, but that's why I wouldn't make the trade. I love this team, and I want to roll with Tannehill and Derrick Henry.
Okay, so it's a sentimental reason, and that's cool. I mean, it's like you should be. I mean, look, this combination of Tannehill and Henry is an all-time combination in franchise history.
Sure.
Certainly in Titans history. I mean, it's right there in terms of effectiveness, performance, in a shorter period of time, of course, but right up there with McNair, George. So I get, like, fans have embraced these guys, and they want to see what they can do for the next few years. So that I get that. I do. And fans love continuity and hate all the changing and all the, I mean, you want players in your team who are there for several years in a row. Totally get it. All that said, make the trade. I mean, all that said, Aaron Rodgers. Like, you want to win a Super Bowl. And this is what it is. And let's face it. I mean, Tannehill 2 years ago was like the dude you trade a 4th-round pick for. You're like, yeah, okay, I guess he's a decent backup. Yeah. I mean, just as quickly as that can, come in and open your eyes, Aaron Rodgers can come in and win you a trophy.
Eli on the text line says, if you sign Jake Kumaro, Rodgers will run here. That is true. He loves him some Jake Kumaro for some reason. Go get Jake Kumaro, John Robinson. He could be your 5th wide receiver.
Yeah, why is he so like that?
He
that was
Jake
a big
Kumaro.
Problem for him, right?
It's a huge. He loves Jake Kumaro. Oh man, this is a good point brought up by Ron on the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. A clash of the egos: Vrabel and Aaron Rodgers. What do you think about that combination with Mike Vrabel and Aaron Rodgers? Certainly some egos involved there.
How many times has Vrabel
with Rodgers
hit Aaron Rodgers? I'm sure they
saw
each other a few times whenever the Packers and Pats, had that was the divisional NFC-AFC matchup.
Yeah.
Well, here's one question on that. Like, how many NFL head coaches don't have big egos?
Not many.
I mean, I know people. Vrabel's the coach here, so people think about him, and certainly. Some of the ways that he handles things project that sort of arrogance, but I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of big egos in this sport. He's been able to coexist with a lot of people. I feel like it'd be fine.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Seth texting in, these people are bobos, as Floyd used to say. Over the years, I've noticed Preds and Titans fans are too sentimental. We're talking about one of the 5 greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game. Come on now. I'm with you.
Yeah, I think that's – look, again, I get the sentimentality. I mean, I'm – like when I was – when I was a Detroit Tigers fan, if someone said, we're going to trade Alan Trammell for Cal Ripken Jr., I said, get the hell out of here. No, Trammell's my guy.
Yeah.
I don't want – now, was Ripken better? Yeah.
Yeah.
Not a ton, by the way, but he was better. But
Dan Fouts?
Boy.
Bring Dan Fouts.
Now you throw me. I don't know what to do with that one. Don't you dare touch Dan Fouts.
The greatest quarterback of all time,
That's
Dan
right.
Fouts.
So, back when I was a Chargers fan, if someone said, hey, Dan Marino for Dan Fouts. Nope. Sorry. Dan Fouts was Dan Marino before Dan Marino, really. Yeah. But people don't want to recognize.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Fred from Ashland City texting in, Rodgers would hate our offense, and I don't know if we have the talent to go pass first. Rodgers is not as opposed to running the ball as I think people think. I mean, sure, he wants to throw the ball. Every quarterback does. They run the ball a lot in Green Bay. Did you see that Titans game? They run the ball a lot in Green Bay.
It works.
Yeah. A.J. Dillon, Aaron Jones, they run quite a bit in Green Bay.
Look, there's no quarterback, and certainly not a quarterback at Rodgers' stage, who, if they're winning and it's working, isn't fine handing off all game and throwing 25 passes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Rodgers doesn't – I mean, I don't buy like he's got to accumulate X number of stats or any of that stuff. No. Win. Have balance. Don't have to have everything on your shoulders. I think most quarterbacks sign up for that.
At B Jameson 247 on Periscope says, for those that think Tannehill can't win with his arm, did you forget the Houston game last year, the last play? Talking about that beautiful pass to A.J. Brown to set up the game winner by Sam Sloman.
I mean, Tannehill, if you haven't watched what he's done the last 2 years, and you just think that he's a second-rate quarterback, third-tier quarterback, whatever, who hands off to Henry and gets out of the way, I can't help you.
Got a texter that says, what if the Titans are to Rodgers what Brady was to, or what the Buccaneers were to Brady?
There you go.
Here we are. Now, we talked about, Peyton Manning taking a visit here with the Titans back when he was making a free agent decision last offseason. The discussion about Brady, apparently a one-time touring NBA, turned out to not be true. And now Aaron Rodgers. He's going to be the toast of the offseason this time around. A lot of connections to some good quarterbacks here for the Titans. Haven't ended up with any of them so far.
Third time's the charm?
Third time's the charm.
Well, again, you go back to last year. I believe the Titans made the right choice. Brady was better this year than I thought he'd be. So he won a Super Bowl. So
there was that.
There was that. But this got into a thing. Actually, I got into a big thing with Jared yesterday on the whole, like the Bucs were awful, and then he came in and there's an example of a team that a lot of quarterbacks could have won a Super Bowl with. I'm sorry, but they could have. Like Jimmy Garoppolo could have won a Super Bowl with Tampa Bay last year. With that defensive line, with those receivers, with everything they had going. They had a loaded team that was totally undercut by 31 Jameis Winston picks year before and was an 11-5, 12-4 team if he isn't that. So I'll stick to that.
Sam says, got a question for y'all. Option A, you win a Super Bowl this year but losing seasons for the next 4 after. Or option B, playoffs every year, the next 5 seasons, AFC championship appearance or 2, but you never get to the Super Bowl. I mean, I don't hesitate. It's a Super Bowl. That's what you play the game for.
No hesitation. Yeah, I'm muted. Yes, Porth. Yes, count me in for a bad mute. No, it's no hesitation. The entire point of all of this is to hoist a Lombardi trophy and have a parade. I mean, like, seriously, if you knew, imagine that, though. Like, if you actually had that choice, and it's like, you're going to be pretty good. You're not going to get there. So just so you know, you're not getting there. Oh, great. That sounds wonderful. Yeah, how exciting. Yeah. No.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Coy in Clarksville texting in. Yeah, why would we trade all of our draft picks for the next 2 years and Tannehill for a quarterback who chokes in the NFC title game multiple times?
Ooh.
Yeah. Watch the games, buddy. It's not on Aaron Rodgers.
No, not,
If your cornerback's not giving up a Hail Mary bomb at the end of the first half, might be in a position to win.
That's
or
true.
If you don't give up 45 to the Falcons in the NFC title game.
Well, what happened to the Packers hits my point, I think, exactly. They couldn't protect Aaron Rodgers in that game.
Yeah.
The Chiefs couldn't protect Patrick Mahomes in that game. They were overwhelming to opponents, which, again, shows you there's a lot of ways to win Super Bowls. It's not just at that position. It's still obviously the most important position. But that was not Aaron Rodgers choking. Now, has he in the past?
I'm sure a game or two, yeah. He's not played well.
He hasn't played his absolute
but
best.
I mean,
like when they lost to the Falcons, he wasn't very good that year.
Yeah, but they gave up 40 points.
Right, their defense just got torched.
Yeah, and the NFC title game against San Francisco, I mean, Mostert had 250 yards rushing. Like, what are you supposed to do with that as a quarterback? It's just that's a very simplistic view of the NFC title games.
I mean, again, if we're going to compare Brady and Rodgers, Brady's the GOAT.
Yeah.
When did Brady ever have a crap defense that he had to score 45 points to overcome? Not one time ever in his career.
No.
He's had good – he hasn't had, like, superstar weapons either. I'll give you that. But he's always had a good defense on the other side of him, and it's all part of it. And I'm sure that he helped coach him up and all that stuff and got in the huddles before each possession. And But still, it's not one person.
Well, bottom line is this. I don't think there's a very strong chance of this happening at all. I'd be shocked if Aaron Rodgers ended up on the Titans. But if he's made available at some point and the Packers budge, you're picking up that phone if you're John Robinson. And if that's all it takes is Tannehill and 2 first-rounders, to get Aaron Rodgers, there's zero hesitation from my part on that. Zero.
What's the poll if the question is Tannehill and Henry for Rodgers and Jones?
I don't know.
I bet you it's about 80-20 against.
I don't think most people know how good Aaron Jones is.
Yeah, he's very good.
He's pretty good.
But still.
He's not Derrick Henry, but he's pretty good. When we come back, we'll continue the discussion on the Titans. Ben Arthur from the Tennessean will join us to get into the Titans, their draft, and the outlook ahead heading into training camp. All that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Streaming live on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch as well. Right now, talking Tennessee Titans, and to help us do that, we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Ben Arthur from the Tennessean, covers the Tennessee Titans. Ben, first off, welcome to town. It's a pleasure to have you on with us here today.
Thank you for having me on, guys. Excited to talk some Titans with you guys.
Absolutely, Ben. We appreciate you taking time to join us this morning. We'll start just simply with the NFL draft. What did you think of the draft for the Titans, selecting Caleb Farley in the first round, number 22 overall? No tight end selected throughout the draft. As a whole, when you look at this draft for John Robinson and the Titans, what are some thoughts that come to mind?
Yeah, you excuse me. Yeah, I think first of all, I think the draft grades for the Titans draft has kind of been all over the place. I've seen like F's and then I've also seen like some A's. I'd kind of put myself like right in the middle. I think the Titans, they hit a lot of their needs. With the exception of tight end, I think they hit pretty much all of their needs. I kind of had some, questions about, where they took some of those positions in need. Like you look at wide receiver and, they didn't take a receiver until, day 3. I like the Farley pick, upside, obviously tremendous talent. You have concerns with the back situation. But if the Titans obviously got a hand, on him. He checked out for them health-wise, and, they believe he'll be able to play. So, you kind of bank on that. I think Ray Dunn's in the second round, was a good value. The Molden pick in the third round, I liked a lot. I think that could actually be the steal of the draft for the Titans. A guy I thought would go in maybe the 40s. You get him at 100. Can play nickel, can play safety. Being from Seattle, I've actually seen him, play a lot, at the University of Washington, and saw what he was capable of. So, I think that was a good pick. So yeah, all in all, I think it was, a solid draft. I wouldn't say it was like the greatest draft in the world for them, but again, I think they did hit a lot of their needs. But you would have liked to see a tight end in there, especially at the end, even if you weren't able to get one in the middle rounds, and then maybe an earlier round receiver.
Yeah, Ben, you mentioned Seattle. Like you said, you were there. So tell us a little bit about your road to here. And I know it's tough because everything's still basically remote, but what are your impressions of, the Titans, this beat, and compared with your last beat?
Yeah, so obviously, I mean, it's kind of getting, adjusted to the new beat and to Nashville and all that. But yeah, it's the teams are very different, right? I mean, in Seattle, you have a very high profile quarterback in Russell Wilson, probably one of the 3-4 best quarterbacks in the league. Ryan Tannehill isn't, quite on that level. But again, he's a guy who's, been able to kind of resurrect his career in Nashville, kind of with the Titans. I think the first things that kind of came to mind when I was transitioning beats was just kind of the connection between DK Metcalf and AJ Brown, because they're super close. And, AJ Brown actually came up, quite a few times in Seattle when we, interviewed DK, just because of, the relationship, going back to Ole Miss and all that. So yeah, that was, something I'm looking forward to, covering AJ Brown, really talented receiver, basically a yak monster, just in terms of what he's able to do, breaking tackles and whatnot. Honestly, in Seattle, I didn't, know a whole lot, about the Titans. They weren't, always on my radar, obviously being in the AFC, but, just a different, part of the country. One thing that did, kind of stand out about the Titans, to me from, afar, was just kind of how balanced their offense was. They kind of had like the picture-perfect offense to me. You had the brilliant OC and Arthur Smith. You had a 2,000-yard rusher, a 1,000-yard receiver, and then obviously what Ryan Tannehill has been able to do in Nashville. So it just seemed like the perfect combination of puzzle pieces from afar. So yeah, that was definitely something that's kind of that stood out to me from far, and the team I'm really looking forward to covering now that I'm in Nashville.
Ben Arthur from the Tennessean on the line with us, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, covers the Titans for the Tennessean. And Ben, we've been kind of throwing this around all hour long here on the show. Obviously, I mean, Aaron Rodgers is attracting a lot of attention right now in the NFL, and what his future is going to look like with the Titans or with the Packers. Ryan Tannehill has been so great for the Titans since he's come in here from Miami. And Bill Barnwell from ESPN has thrown out kind of a hypothetical trade scenario that would have Rodgers come into the Titans for a fourth-round pick in 2023, would have Tannehill back to the Packers for 2 first-round picks as well. If it comes down to it, and Aaron Rodgers is made available, and that's an option, should the Titans consider that option, in your opinion, even given how good Tannehill has been for them in the last couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, I think any time you could get, the reigning NFL MVP, one of the best quarterbacks of all time, I think you have to at least, do your due diligence. A popular phrase that, covering the Seahawks, that general manager John Schneider and head coach Pete Carroll, tossed around a lot, was kind of doing their due diligence on everything, all the chatter going on around the league, even if it may not seem super realistic, but you at least make that phone call and see kind of what the deal is, who may or may not kind of be interested in. And I think if you're John Robinson and the Titans, you at least explore that option, right? And I think the way the Titans are constructed, this is kind of a win-now team, right? They're, 2 seasons removed from that, AFC championship run in 2019. You have Derrick Henry in his prime. You have A.J. Brown, Jeffrey Simmons, guys like that on the rookie deal. The offensive line is kind of built to win now. I think you at least kind of kick the tires on that. Honestly, I don't really see how that would happen. But again, I think if you're John Robinson and the Titans, you at least make that call. I think when you're in that kind of position, you at least kind of have to check out the situation and see what may or may not be possible.
Well, since we're talking hypotheticals, let's go with your past beat, Ben. What about Russ and Rodgers straight up, huh? I mean, how would that be viewed in Seattle?
Yeah, that would be interesting. I mean, I think in terms of value, right? That would be kind of the most. I mean, that would be like almost a perfect swap, right? Just in terms of value, like you wouldn't have to maybe put in draft picks or another player in that kind of deal. It would be very much kind of a one-for-one thing. And so, yeah, I don't know how people in Seattle would feel about that. I mean, obviously, sort of like the Titans. I mean, the Seahawks are sort of in like a win now mode, right? I mean, Pete Carroll is getting up there in age. I think their window kind of opportunity is closer to the end than, to being kind of like in an opening for potential, years to come. I mean, you look at some of the stars they have on defense, like a Bobby Wagner and who's, he's in his late 20s, early 30s, somewhere in that range. Jamal Adams kind of in his prime. So I think, I think, Aaron Rodgers would kind of give you an option to, stay in that win now mode. And, obviously it's a different kind of offense there, right? I mean, Pete Carroll has kind of talked about, wanting to get back to running the ball more, after kind of the Seahawks offense fell apart at the end of 2020. So, I don't know how much Aaron Rodgers would kind of want to be in potentially a situation like that. But yeah, in terms of just a swap, in terms of a one-for-one swap, there probably isn't a better situation than the Seahawks and Russell Wilson.
Ben Arthur from the Tennessean on the line with us, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Ben, last thing for you here. As you look at the wide receiver room for the Titans, obviously you feel great about A.J. Brown. You've just taken Des Fitzpatrick in the draft, as you mentioned. Josh Reynolds right now, appears to be their number 2 wide receiver. He's not been a number 2 wide receiver at this point yet in his career. What do you think of the wide receiver room for the Titans? How concerned would you be if you're a Titans fan about the depth or lack thereof heading into the season with the roster currently as it stands?
Yeah, I am, I'm kind of in the ballpark of, a lot of people who are, kind of not knowing where exactly the production is going to come from, right? You don't only lose Corey Davis, your number 2, but you lose Jonnu Smith, your number 3, your kind of star tight end. And you also don't have Adam Humphries too. I mean, there's a lot of guys who took up a lot of targets in that room, like pass catching, kind of more generally, maybe not just specifically wide receiver, but pass catching, who are not in the picture anymore. And I think you look what they've done. I think the Titans have added, quantity, right? They have some bodies in there, but in terms of quality, in terms of being sure that you're going to get the kind of production you need to kind of make up for what you lost, I don't think you have that at this point. I mean, Des Fitzpatrick could be good, as a 4th rounder, but Racey McMath, He's more of a project, right? More of a special teams guy. Josh Reynolds could maybe be that number 2, but you don't know if John Robinson isn't, on the phone with, people across the league to try and trade for someone, an established veteran receiver, or, at least get a number 1 tight end. I know that's something he alluded to in his post-draft press conference this past Sunday, kicking the tires on, some options, maybe bringing Pruitt back. But, I think you look at the receiving room, the pass-catching options you have on the roster right now, I think you just got to add to that. I mean, the way it's constructed, you're depending largely on A.J. Brown and then, hoping for a lot of the guys, a lot of the reserves, backups to maybe to take big leaps to make up for what you lost. And I don't know that that's a plan that you should bank on.
Ben Arthur from the Tennessean has been our guest here on Robby and Rexrode. Ben, great stuff. Appreciate you taking time to join us this morning, and welcome to town. Excited to have you on the beat here.
Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
Ben
Ben.
Arthur, you can check out his work at the Tennessean covering the Tennessee Titans. When we come back, we'll get back into the Nashville Predators. A tough loss last night against Columbus. What does it mean moving forward? Are there any concerns creeping into the Predators game over the last 2 games in Columbus? We'll talk about that coming up next. Don't miss the Cure for Our Friends Cystic Fibrosis Golf Tournament, May the 15th at 12 Stones Golf Course in Goodlettsville. Some of the teams include retired Titans football players who will be hanging around after the tournament for the after party. Cure for Our Friends Golf Tournament still has room for a few more teams and a need for silent auction items and sponsors. More information can be found at cureforourfriends.org. Thank you to Dad's Towing, Mitchell Motors, and Nashville Wrecker Services for being the tournament sponsor for the 2021 Cure for Our Friends Cystic Fibrosis Golf Tournament. We'll be right back. Robby and Rexrode live from the Wholesale Link studio, powered by RumbleOn.com here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in. Final hour of Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Streaming live on Periscope, on YouTube, and on Twitch as well. Taking your thoughts on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. We'll have Hal Gill, Predators radio analyst, dropping by at 9:30, so looking forward to that conversation coming up with him. A tough one for the Predators last night. They fall 4-2 at the hands of the Columbus Blue Jackets. A 3-2 game where Columbus adds an empty netter with about a half a second left in regulation. The Predators were up 1-0. They were up 2-1 in that game, but just couldn't hold on. I think, Joe, the thing that stands out to me, and Terry Chris talked about this a little bit on the postgame show last night on television, the energy level just didn't really seem to be there to the level at which I expected. Like, I thought with everything on the line, Dallas is playing Tampa Bay. You've got a chance, if you're the Predators, to clinch a playoff berth last night. I thought the energy level was going to be a little higher than it was in that game. I thought, the Predators just kind of settled in there and were reactive, as John Hines said earlier in the show today. I think that was the theme a little bit in the third period as well against Columbus the other night. I was disappointed in the energy level that I saw from the Predators yesterday. I'm not saying that that's a huge point of concern at this point. There's no reason to panic over that. But I would expect moving forward, like if you're going to continue to play at the level they've been at and be as successful as they've been, that energy level's got to be there. Like that's a big part of the identity that they've established, and I thought they were a little bit lax in that area yesterday.
Do you think that's the same thing, energy level and reactive? Because Hines seems to think it's different.
Well, he does. I mean, if you're reactive, it means you're not dictating the pace.
Right.
So I would equate those two the same.
It's got to be somewhat related.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it just wasn't good enough, and it's disappointing that I think pretty much the whole thing, too much not their best hockey in 2 games there in Columbus. You get the clutch 2 points in the first game, get nothing last night, give up leads multiple times, and just not good enough. It's not what you expect for a team that's soaring like this and so close to clinching.
Let's go to our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Ben texts in and says, how can the Preds improve the team this offseason? First-round exit versus whoever needs to have consequences since David kept the team together at the trade deadline instead of preparing for the future, just like he did in 2018. We see how that went. I think Ben wants to run everyone in town off.
Is it Ben?
Tannehill,
everybody's
J-Rob,
everybody's
Vrabel,
on the hot seat. Who's not on the hot seat, Ben?
Yeah, who's not? Look, we've talked about this. I mean, if you end up getting into the playoffs here and you're out in the first round and you kept Granlund at the deadline, you kept Hall at the deadline, and you're not able to get Granlund back in here next year, I mean, a lot of people are going to look at it and be like, okay, so you just lost Mikhail Granlund for nothing. I get it. I think that's a totally fair discussion to have at that point. I would say the noise that we heard on Poyle and Hines halfway through this season when things were really bad, that's done. I mean, that noise no longer exists, I think.
Yeah, well, I'll say this, though. What if they don't make the playoffs?
Yeah.
There's some Poyle noise that's coming back strong, okay? I mean, I think Hines, those are 2 different situations. I always thought so all along. Hines has done a lot to, I think, impress. Poyle, that's the decision. He's the decision maker on personnel, and it will get ugly fast if they don't make the playoffs. But even if they do, they go out, they don't keep Granlund, then it's an easy second guess for sure. But to your point, the noise earlier in the year was, again, like, I'm trying to find out who would fire him for a piece for the Athletic. I mean, that's the difference in the noise then versus now.
Well, and also, like, I think the disappointing part about last night is exactly what you needed to have fall in place for you. It fell in place. I mean, Tampa Bay, they hammer Dallas last night 6-2, and you had an opportunity there if you could just beat Columbus, a team you've had a lot of success against this year, and a team that really, quite frankly, is not very good and doesn't have any business hanging around right now. There you'd be. I mean, Columbus is in a dogfight right now with Detroit for the worst team in the division. and the energy level just wasn't there. That was disappointing to me. And look, I think things are probably still going to work out for the Predators. They're probably going to get in. I mean, I would assume Tampa Bay is probably going to beat Dallas tomorrow in regulation. And if not, I mean, Dallas has got to win out, basically, at this point. That's difficult for me to imagine based on they've not been able to really generate any traction all year long. But this could be something where you're not even having this discussion today, and we're talking about, Pecorine playing on Saturday, and you can rest some guys that are banged up right now. And it just feels like you let a perfect opportunity last night fall right through your fingertips if you're the Predators.
No doubt. No doubt. It's disappointing. And it's a little concerning that Matt Duchene, is essentially benched, or at least, for a lot of the third period, as John Hines told us earlier on the show.
Yep.
I mean, it was an injury. So double shifting Forsberg totally makes sense. Double shifting Forsberg exclusively for Duchene, I don't know that I can just take that as, well, this is just the best thing to do at this point. Wouldn't you move it around normally?
Yeah. I mean, look, I get it. Normally, when you're double shifting somebody, a lot of times that ends up on the fourth line. And it's difficult to do that right now based on the way that fourth line's playing, so I understand that. But even if it's not, like if you're picking the third line, okay, that's where Forsberg's going to be double shifted. Would you not double shift him ahead of, a Brad Richardson rather than Matt Duchene? You would think. I don't know.
You would hope.
Yeah. It's probably not what you're looking for if you're a Predators fan.
Like Forsberg, Duchene together
with Hall
in a double shift situation sounds
pretty good.
Dangerous.
Yeah. Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Wayne text in, as the formerly injured core players have returned to the lineup, the play has slowly slipped back to the level it was before the injuries hit. The problems are within those formerly injured core players. I don't know if I agree with that. I don't think the play right now is anywhere close to what it was like before all these injuries took place.
The play was tremendous
atrocious
against Dallas.
Yeah.
A couple days ago. So, I will, whatever it is, certain guys, just an overall collective, I don't think Hines really indulged this, but I mean the idea of a little bit of a sigh of like accomplishment when you beat Dallas and everybody's like, oh, you're getting in. You're in.
Yeah.
Some of that stuff, whatever it is, it wasn't good enough in Columbus, but it's 2 games. This has not been some downward trend over a period of time at all.
Troy on Twitter says, can you discuss the possibility that the return for Granlund might not have been worth it?
Sure.
We don't know what the offer was for Mikhail Granlund at the deadline. My guess is it probably was around a second-round pick. I don't know. May not have been. I don't know. It's difficult for me to believe if anybody seriously wanted Mikhail Granlund that you're not offering at least a second-rounder. Like, if you're not, what are you doing? I mean, you're just wasting your time at that point.
Yeah, I mean, and that to me is good enough. Roman Josi was a second-round pick, right?
He was.
I mean, if he's
now,
not.
Having said that, you can find examples of second-round picks,
of course,
that have totally flamed out. You can find examples of seventh-rounders that have been pretty good. But yes, I hear you. Roman Josi was
just
a second-round
saying,
pick.
like, you can do pretty good things with a second-round pick. Like,
sure.
Get like the next guy who's going to be considered the greatest player, or is going to be compared against Pecorine someday in the greatest player of franchise history discussion.
Yep.
But look, the Granlund thing, to me, it's 2 things make it okay: a run, or getting him back here.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Greg texting in, I would have left Fabro and Harper out for that game. I feel the third pair was fine, and you don't want to disrupt the flow in an important game like that. I would have brought him back at home against Carolina so you can control the matchups at that point. I hear you. I mean, that makes sense. I also didn't think like the overriding problem last night was Ben Harper and Dante Fabro. I mean, they were okay. I didn't think that they were just noticeably terrible or anything like that. So I hear what Greg's saying there. Maybe keep the flow together, and if you wrap things up, then you can try to ease Fabro back in there and get his legs back underneath him before the playoffs come around. But I didn't go away from that game last night thinking, ooh, Ben Harper and Dante Fabro, that's not good.
Yeah. No, I mean, it does make sense. But, yeah, there's bigger things going on than your third defense pairing in that game.
Yeah, and that's a problem that you're going to have to address tomorrow at practice if you're John Hines, with still what could be a massive game coming up on Saturday against the Carolina Hurricanes. What has to happen this week for the Predators to avoid that? And if they can avoid that, if Dallas wins against Tampa Bay, how concerned are you as a Predators fan about these matchups against Carolina? We'll get into all that coming up next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. That was Predators head coach John Hynes after the game last night. A 4-2 loss for the Predators against the Columbus Blue Jackets, setting up what could be a massive game on Saturday for the Predators against the Carolina Hurricanes. And speaking of leading up to that, tomorrow, May the 7th, has been declared Nashville Predators Pride Day throughout Tennessee. We invite you to cheer on the team by wearing gold, and throughout the day, the Preds will highlight their amazing fans sporting their favorite Preds gear. Take a pic and post on your social media page, and be sure to tag the Preds at Preds NHL. Show your support for the Preds and wear gold tomorrow. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robby Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth. I do want to pass along some breaking news in the NHL. New York Rangers forward Pavel Buchnevich will have a hearing today for high-sticking Washington's Anthony Mantha. So we talked about the play last night where
look at the smile on your face.
Cross-checks Mantha in the face, how I said that was worse than Wilson's play, and looks like he's going to have a hearing today. I'm sure that'll go over well. Be a nice response to that.
Do you feel like you're dunking on people right now?
Yeah, I do.
Delivering this news?
Yes,
I
do.
feel like I can tell.
Hey, it is what it is, man.
I actually haven't even seen the play. I trust your judgment on it.
It's pretty bad.
Yeah, to the face.
Yeah,
cross check to the face.
Yeah.
That's probably good. But Tom Wilson, man. Well, got Hal Gill on.
Bet you Buchnevich gets 2 games because they have 2 games left in the year.
Yeah, probably so.
So he's suspended for the rest of the season.
Suspended for the rest of the year.
Right.
Just like Panarin. He's hurt for the rest of the year.
Knocked
until
him out
Sunday.
for the entire season.
Yes. All right. Thanks. Appreciate that. So we'll keep you updated on the ruling for Pavel Buchnevich, which I'm sure Nate, everybody on Twitter last night that was yelling at me about Tom Wilson, I'm sure that will go over well today on Twitter as well. Joe, right now talking Preds. Hal Gill going to join us here in about 10 minutes. Let's go to our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. Got a texter that says, why haven't the Predators started Rene? I don't understand this. This has been a popular theme here on the text line, too.
Do we have a name on this?
No. Saros has been the best goaltender in the league the last 2 months. That's why. I don't understand this. Like, I get it. Pekka Rinne is the most beloved player ever. But, like, at what point in the last few weeks / couple of months have the Predators, should they have been just handing out sparks to Pekka Rinne left and right?
Like, it's a question that's comparable to why don't the Titans start Mariota anymore? And I understand that, like, Pekka Rinne's still on the team, but, like, seriously. Like, that's – I have no comment. I have no comment on this.
No comment. Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Got a texter that says, we were talking about Ben earlier, wanted to run Poyle out of town. He says, I don't want to run everyone out of town just for the heck of it. I'm tired of people doing things for years and not getting us championships and getting to keep their jobs. They are lucky this market accepts it.
Yeah, well, although some shows say they are the only honest show in town.
Yes.
Listen, I think it's absolutely fair to talk about Poyle and the future and his job and all these things. No question about it. It's also worth remembering that it wasn't that long ago that Poyle was like GM of the year in the league and they won the President's Trophy. I mean, it's been a 2-year stretch of, things are going the other way. And now it's been an almost 2-month stretch of, maybe they're not as bad as you thought. That still doesn't completely salvage everything. And, look, there's a whole offseason to go of what they're going to do to try to be a contender because that's the point now. You're either a contender and you can get right back there or you better fundamentally change things. I don't know on the whole Poyle thing over the period of time. You guys can tell me better than I know, but I mean, he's the winningest GM in history. He's built some really good teams. He had limitations financially for a lot of his tenure.
I don't even think you could start really judging David Poyle until like 2012. Like, I mean, this team was operating with one hand tied behind their back until 2012.
Right.
I mean, that's what it was.
So okay, so there's 9 years. In that time, he did build up to a Stanley Cup final run, and it wasn't just a fluke. They backed it up the next year. They won the President's Trophy. They lose to Winnipeg. In the go-for-it period, David Poyle has made some terrible choices that have gone very poorly.
Yeah.
So it's fair to criticize him, and it's fair to talk about any GM's job over any kind of extended stretch of downturn. Absolutely. And I do think with Poyle, because he's been the only GM here, that there's more sentiment for him, I think probably in the fan base, and I think in the organization. I mean, it's different. A lot of organizations have GMs for 5 to 7 years like the Titans. Since Floyd Reese, it's a few years, new GM, few years. That's how most places are. There's not many places where you have this, this 20-plus year GM situation. But like you said, really, like what he did, he was not working with the same deck of cards as his peers before recently. So that's a long. It's not simple. Is the point? It's not, but. To say that that this town has just completely said, David Poile, you do whatever you want to do and you're fine. I don't think that's true. I think the media here is not as hard as in other towns. But I think there's been plenty of discussion about Poile's job and about accountability for Poile.
Let's go back to the text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Got a texter that says, our fourth line last night kept generating chances. Trent had a couple of great opportunities. If he was a better goal scorer, the game goes differently last night. Our other three lines weren't generating the chances that the Herd line was generating, and that is frustrating to watch at times. I hear you. I mean, as much credit as you give the fourth line and the way they've played, and they deserve it. I mean, Tanner Jeannot, Colton Sissons, Yakov Trenin, they've been really good, and they've played really well. I think it's at times it can be an indictment on the rest of the lineup there that you're down in the game and the Herd line's getting as many shifts as they were. Like, those shifts should be going to Johansson and Forsberg and Duchesne as a part of this. And that's nothing against the Herd line, but that's where they should be going. And the fact that the coach thinks he's got a better chance to score with Tanner Jeannot than he does Matt Duchesne is not good.
No, it's great for the Herd line.
Yeah.
Because I thought the same thing. Every time they're on the ice, it's like, okay, now they got a forecheck going. That they've got some stuff going to the net. They got a chance. Should not be that way. Good for them. That's a discredit to the other lines, and that's gotta quickly change. Because I don't agree with the earlier texter who said there's an overall downward trend at all. But in these two games, they weren't dangerous enough.
Well, and Tolvanen he's gone off a little bit. Obviously, Duchesne we talked about. I mean, there's a 12-minute stretch last night in the third period where he was on the bench, and John Hines joined us earlier in the show and said, "Yeah, it's just how the game went." So it didn't have anything to do with injury. He was just on the bench at that point. So. I mean, they've been kind of rolling with – the Granlund line has been together for a long time now with Yarncroke and Cunnin alongside him. I didn't think they were very good last night. I mean, you've had, I think, mixed results since Forsberg's come back in with Johansson and Tolvanen. I thought the game before Forsberg came back in, Johansson and Tolvanen were not good together. So it looks like Arvidsson could be available on Saturday. I wonder if there could be some pretty significant line shuffling as we move ahead this weekend, if the game matters. Now – If you've locked up a playoff spot,
well, there might be more.
There's going to be more because I would assume maybe some guys getting some rest at that point. But if the game matters, I wonder if there's some line shuffling.
I would have to think something. Right? I don't know what it would be.
You think so?
But typically.
Maybe Jofa comes back together if Arvidsson's in there?
Would you do that?
I don't know. I mean, I don't really like the way Tolvanen's playing right now, so you got to do something to get him going. I also think we've seen Jofa come back together a few times, and there's been mixed results the last couple of years. Times they look great, times been very average. I don't know. Would you?
There's been I don't know.
Is that intrigue still there with you?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it still was just a year ago where they looked great.
Yeah.
So and they didn't just look great for like a shift or a game. They look pretty good for a few games. So it wasn't that long ago, but you have to consider things like that, like Tolvanen and Duchesne, and what's the best usage and what are all the best combinations. So I don't know. I say just run that Herd line out there for about 30 minutes. Yeah.
102.5 The Game and T-Mobile have partnered up to give you a chance to experience a Nashville SC game this season. Tune in every Monday to Darren, Donick, and Chase for the keyword to text in to win. Good luck from 102.5 The Game, T-Mobile, and Nashville SC. When we come back, we'll be joined by Preds radio analyst Hal Gill. We'll look ahead to what could be a massive game for the Predators coming up on Saturday against Carolina. That's next. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee, discussing the Nashville Predators. And to help us talk more about that, we go to our 102.5 The Game phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, and welcome in Predators radio analyst Hal Gill, presented by Duncan, featuring their new location in Belle Meade, and TriStar Moving, TriStar Movers with 5-star service. Skillsy, what's going on, brother? How we doing?
Just dealing with the whiplash after last night. Just trying to figure out if we're going to be a playoff team or not. So that's where I'm at.
It's a fun time, isn't it? I mean, it was an interesting kind of 2-game set here with Columbus. I heard Crispy on the post-game show last night on TV side of things talking about how he didn't like the energy level, didn't like how the energy level kind of played out for the Predators until the third period where you're trying to make the comeback. What was your takeaway from the game last night and really the 2-game set as a whole for the Predators against Columbus?
Yeah, you know what? It was kind of deceiving because I felt like the Preds came out in the first 2 periods. I thought they'd established, of that set. In the game 1, the first 2 periods, they really established that they were a better team. And they kind of let up, and their defensive zone got sloppy. They let them back in the game, but they win. And so you go, all right, they're the better team. That just took them a while to prove it. And then that game last night was it was sloppy. And I felt like one of these teams, and you're assuming it would be the Preds that would take the bull by the horns, make some clean plays, get some action going, and score some goals, and lock it down defensively. And that defensive zone coverage was a concern for me. That was not pretty. It was sloppy. It became man-to-man at one time where they're kind of just chasing around the zone. So that was concerning for me, and they let that one slip away. And I think they really should have had that energy and their mojo going to get that win. So disappointing, but it's not the end of the world. They still, if they want to have any success, they're going to have to beat a good team. And Carolina's a good team, and they're coming in. It's going to be a Saturday night in Smashville. If they can't get fired up for that, to be able to get into the playoffs, I don't know what's wrong. They don't deserve the playoffs, to be honest with you. That's a good test for them, and so maybe it's fitting that they have to close it out against a good team like Carolina.
So why would you think that this little step back would happen, Hal, at this point?
Because it's hockey, and it's just right when you think you have everything figured out, it kind of crumbles on you. And that's the miserable part about the game, but it's also the great part is you can turn it back around quick. And I always say if you can make it through a league or a season without losing more than one game in a row, without losing 2 games in a row ever, then you're going to have success. And it's hard to right the ship. But you get a good response. You have a couple days off here where you can rest and the hammer back down, you can straighten it out. And sometimes you just don't have it. And it's hard to explain. There's no reason why. You say, I'm doing everything right. You stick to your routine. You go out, you play the right way in your head, and it just doesn't work out. And so you have to move on, make the adjustments, and be better the next game.
Preds radio analyst Hal Gill on with us here on Robby and Rexrode, brought to you by Duncan and by TriStar Movers. Hal, we had John Hines on with us earlier in the show, and there was about a 12 and a half minute gap last night in the third period where Matt Duchene did not play. And I wondered, was it injury related? Did he, aggravate something? So we asked John Hines about it, and he said basically that's just the way the game unfolded at that point, which to me translates to, Matt Duchene was on the bench. How surprising was that to you? And number two, what have you thought of Matt Duchene and his play since he's returned to the lineup?
Yeah, he doesn't generate enough. That's the bottom line. He's got a ton of skill. He's got escapability. He's got everything that you're looking for in an elite playmaker and goal scorer, but it's just not. He's not doing it. And he had that. It was a couple games ago now where he had a third period where he was great, and maybe the Dallas game. I thought he looked good, and he was firing and getting separation from players and then making plays, and it was like, okay, this is what we got. And then it's not there. I don't see the speed through the neutral zone. I don't see the quick cutbacks in the defensive zone where he's, we watch Roman Josi do it all the time, where he goes down, cuts back, and then blows away from a guy and gets and makes plays that way. And you're looking at Duchesne. I think he can do the same thing, but he just hasn't brought it. And for whatever reason, it's not there. And so I think, you get skipped over as a coach looks at it and says, hey, we'll just pass this guy by because, Forsberg had a couple plays where he beat a guy out the corner and then was able to attack the net. And that's what you need from your elite players.
Hal, what about the Fabro obviously comes back, so it looks different, in the defense core last night. What did you think of how that looked, and how difficult is it going to be, I think, for John Hines to figure that out with all the choices available?
Well, it's funny because, you look at Carrier and he's come in and he's really put his foot down and said, hey, I'm going to be a top 4 defenseman, and he's proven that. It's going to be tough between Harper, Fabro, Goodbranson, Benning. You have some different looks. You have big, strong guys. You have guys that can play solid defensively. Fabro, I think, has the offensive upside. He's just getting back into trying to catch a moving train, so to speak. And so you have to give him a little grace. I don't think he played fantastic last night, but I give him a little wiggle room just because it's his first game. So it's going to be interesting. I think in large part it's going to be determined by line matchups. If you're playing a heavy team, if you're going to be playing, maybe you want Goodbranson against a heavier team. Fabro, if you want looking for that offense that he can bring you. Maybe that's a guy you put in. So I don't know. It's going to be tough, but I think in the playoffs, if you do get there, I think it's a good problem to have is that you have options on the back end.
All right, so Hal, I have to get your thoughts on this because I made a lot of people mad on Twitter yesterday about my stance on Tom Wilson. And as we know, it was fight night last night at Madison Square Garden between the Rangers and the Capitals. And my viewpoint has been if Tom Wilson is not the one involved in that exact play on Monday night, we're probably not even having this discussion. But because it's Tom Wilson, it's generated the reaction that it has. You may totally disagree with me. I was okay with the league not suspending Tom Wilson on that play. What have kind of been your thoughts on this entire situation and what's played out since then with Tom Wilson and the Capitals?
Yeah, it's funny. Crosby did it the night after. He did the same thing. Those scrums happen all the time, and sometimes there's a bigger guy that tosses a smaller guy down. The way I look at it, I thought maybe he would have gotten the game, but I'm okay with the 5,000. It's not, and I'm getting roasted on Twitter because I said I don't have an opinion, and by not having an opinion, obviously I condone this violence. So it's kind of laughable to me because I've been through these games, and part of my tweet was like, Tom Wilson is a guy everyone wants on their team. Like, he's going out there playing a physical, hard game. Does he cross the line? Yeah, he does, but it's. He's going out. He's playing the game the right way, and he's holding other guys accountable, and that's nice to have on your team. And when you have a guy like him on your team, you play a couple inches taller. So, I just thought the sad part that people aren't looking at is like Panarin jumped in there on his back, and when you're in a scrum like that, your natural instinct is to turn around and defend yourself and throw a guy down. And so, Panarin doesn't want to be in there. Get out of the scrum. Why is he in there anyway? I did that my rookie year. I turned around and beat up a little Russian kid and felt bad after, but his gloves were off and he grabbed me on the shoulder, and I look at it as go time. So, I know what those scrums are like, and I didn't see a real big problem with it. But Tom Wilson plays on the edge, so he's going to get a little more attention for things like that.
Preds radio analyst Hal Gill has been our guest here on Robby and Rexrode, presented by Duncan, featuring their new location in Belmead, and TriStar Moving, TriStar Movers with 5-star service. Hal, great stuff as always, my friend.
Hey,
it's going to be a huge game coming up.
Let me ask you, the line brawl, what did you guys think of that? Is that, I know some people are shivering and, oh my goodness, this is awful, but I know there's a lot of people that love it. What do you guys think?
Sweet memories.
I would respond to you with this question. How many people watched that game last night that otherwise would not have watched that game?
Exactly.
I have no problem with the line brawl.
Are you not entertained?
Exactly. That's right. I have no problem with the line brawl whatsoever. Hey, Hal, we appreciate it, man.
Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. Hal Gill joins us every week here on Robby and Rexrode at 9:30. When we'll come back, we'll react to a little bit of what Hal had to say there and take your thoughts on the Predators on our text line as well, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, 615-737-1025, 615-737-1025. This is Robby and Rexrode here on ESPN 1025, The Game. This season, catch all the action of Sounds Baseball on ESPN 94.9, presented by Farm Bureau Health Plans and 312 Pizza. Today, the Sounds face the Toledo Mud Hens with the pregame starting at 5:20. First pitch is at 5:35. Welcome back in, Robby and Rexrode. You're on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Robbie Stanley, Joe Rexrode, Ryan Porth here with you on this Thursday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Let's go to our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Chris texting in, saying, Robbie, we need you in that locker room Saturday night vibing. Somebody's got to set the tone for the Predators. Maybe that is what needs to happen.
What if they all, wear your T-shirt, into the arena?
And
that would be amazing.
They'd probably be en route to a victory that night.
I was lived in the D.C. area, for a little bit in the early 80s before we moved to Saudi Arabia. This is a great story. And I was a big fan of the Washington football team at the time, Joe Theismann, John Riggins, and they had a huge game at Dallas. They went down to Dallas. They went into the Super Bowl that year. They lost to the Raiders, but they had a huge game at Dallas. They wore, military fatigues coming off the plane.
Yeah.
And it was oh, dang.
There they
These
go.
dudes mean business.
They are not
This was
around.
a big story in local news, on Saturday, that they wore that to the game, and then they kicked their butt the next day. If these guys wore Vibin' Robbie T-shirts,
you can pretty much chalk up a W on Saturday
They'd win
night.
7-0.
Yeah. Rod Brindamore and the Canes wouldn't know what hit them.
or wear them while watching
the game tomorrow.
The game tomorrow and rooting for Tampa Bay.
Absolutely. I think that's a good strategy. Chris, I think you're on to something here. We'll see if we can make that happen. Let's go back to the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Wayne texting in, what's the latest on Matthew Olivier? Is he done for the year? It would be a big boost if he came back.
Would it be?
I mean, he's been pretty good.
But you'd put him in for Tanner right now?
No.
Well, I guess what Wayne is saying is, do you put him in for somebody else?
Yeah, I guess. I guess you could.
You could really go crash and bang out there.
Have double herd lines?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Porth is shaking his
Well, let
head.
me ask you this. If it's Brad Richardson or Matthew Olivier, which one you want in there?
Well, I
what's
want Matthew Olivier in on that fourth line if he's playing.
All right.
What's
all
the
right.
status of Nick Cousins at that point?
That's not what I asked you. I said if it's Brad Richardson or Matthew Olivier, which one you want in there?
Probably Richardson.
Okay, alrighty.
I mean, I'm probably saying the same thing.
The Wiley vet.
Look, I mean, it kind of sucks for Matthew Olivier because I thought he was playing really well before he went out of the lineup. I think Tanner Jeannot has come in and has been every bit as good, maybe a little bit better since he's come out.
And Trennan's not coming out.
No.
At all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. They've got a surplus at some spots, and they've got some shortfalls at other spots.
Shane in Ashland City on the text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, says, if Dallas gets a point against Florida, or excuse me, against Tampa, we're screwed. So all Shane thinks the Dallas has to do is just stay alive against Tampa.
If that's true, then you know what? You would have had a miserable playoff anyway.
That's probably true.
But if I'm Dallas, that's exactly how I'm looking at it. Guys, get a point. And then we have 2 against Chicago, and they have 2 against Carolina. We are not done. That's what I'm saying if I'm
Now,
Dallas.
keep in mind, if Dallas gets a point and they stay alive here, the magic number is 1. So you don't even have to beat the Hurricanes if you're the Predators. You just got to get to overtime, and you're in. Now, if they win in regulation against Tampa, then you got to win.
They have gotten to overtime one time
They have.
against Carolina, and then the 5 regulation losses.
It's happened. Now, also, if Dallas beats Tampa, Carolina's pretty much wrapped up the division. Should be able to beat them one out of those 2 games.
And again, if not, then you were going to have a terrible playoff experience anyway. So just start the complaining early.
Wasn't it a call your shot Friday where I said they are going to beat Carolina in one of those last 2 games?
Probably. I mean, you have 1,000 shots on Call Your Shot Friday per week.
This is true.
I think you just said that Monday, didn't you? I think you just said it.
He's probably said it.
I don't think it was that recent.
It was a declarative statement
I
on
think he
Monday.
said it like a month ago.
2 or 3 weeks ago.
Oh, okay.
Probably after they lost the 2 in Carolina.
Well, you said it again this week.
Okay, well,
I'll
I said
find
it this morning. I'll say it again right now that they're going to beat Carolina one of these next 2 games.
All right, so I had no problem with Tom Wilson not being suspended. Hal Gill had no problem with Tom Wilson not being suspended. Ryan Porth, where do you fall down on this? Because most people do not fall in the camp that Hal Gill and I find myself in.
I would probably side with you in the fact that the act was not suspendable, and if the act is not suspendable, then you don't suspend Tom Wilson. If it was suspendable, then you throw in the
player history,
the history that he has, which is long and noted.
So
it is long and noted. That's
so
a good way to put it.
the judgment of suspendable can't be influenced by who he is?
No,
I don't
Is it
think
a
so.
suspendable play or is it not?
I mean, I think it's pretty darn close.
All right, but if you determine that it's not suspendable, then how can the player, like, to me, it's either a suspendable play or it's not.
I
the
think
player
that
history can't be factored in.
I've determined that it's awfully close, and who is it? Oh, yeah.
I think that's also factoring. That would be similar to factoring in whether a big hit, whether you get a 5-minute major because the player's injured or not. It was either a 5-minute major boarding or it wasn't.
That's not how it works, though, is it? It works a lot the other way.
Way too many times.
Okay. So if it can work that way, then it can work this way.
That's not right that it happens way too many times like that.
Yeah, but I think even with those situations, outcome can tell. I mean, look, it's bang, bang. Did you get a good angle on it? Did you really see it? Okay, well, outcome might be able to tell you a little bit about how bad it was or how dirty it was. Is that not right?
No, it's either a bad hit or it's not.
Well, but I mean,
if
what
it's
if
the
you
same hit and the guy doesn't get hurt? Is it worse of a hit? Is it any better of a hit? No,
maybe
it's the same play.
It might be.
No, that's ridiculous.
If outcome,
that is absolutely asinine.
If outcome is injury,
that is so dumb. That is asinine.
Well, but what if you don't have? What if you can't tell? And it's like, oh well, he's hurt, so
If you can't tell, then don't make the call. It's your job to be able to tell. That's why you're a ref.
Let's just let everybody kill each other then, I guess.
I guess so.
Let's just let this league go haywire, and we'll just have pure chaos. Tom Wilson's all around.
Hey, Buchnevich is about to get suspended. There's no chaos. There's still order in place.
The severity of a penalty should not be based on whether the player got hurt or not. It should be based on the severity of the action that you committed.
Like, for example, if there's just some regular hit and you would never call anything and then the player's down, then, yeah, you don't go retroactively. But if there's
Let me ask you this.
If there's a hit that's close, it's borderline, the outcome, well.
Let me ask you this. If this is,
I'm talking about real life, so that happens. And
if this is Roman Yossi slamming Seth Jones to the ground, are we even having this conversation?
No.
Is this happening on a league-wide scale?
I think if that exact play happened with Roman Yossi, I would be like, dang, what the heck has gotten into him?
Yeah. But are we having a conversation about a suspension or taking the league by storm?
No, the conversation starts with who it was.
Exactly.
But I will say that play, you actually have to watch it. Okay, because the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, my God, he's a brute. Like, get him out of the league. Then you look at it again, it's like it wasn't as bad as it looks. It's a weird play because it actually looks like a head smash to the ice, but it's not quite that. But I'll go ahead and I'll give Tom Wilson more, and I'll err on the side of I'll err on the side of no, punish his ass because he's
I think way more people are on your side than are on my side. I just find it, to me, people can't seem to remove their bias from Tom Wilson in this discussion. As Hal pointed out, Sidney Crosby did the exact same thing the next night. Nothing. There's zero discussion about it. It's because it's not Tom Wilson.
Yeah.
It's the same play.
But he's earned this. But he's earned it with his crap.
But the play is either suspendable or it's not.
But he is suspendable.
Okay. Well, that has nothing to do with that play.
So should he get suspended if he scores a goal?
Yeah, I mean, what
possibly
he did too much.
Possibly so.
If he's too hard on the puck, that might at least like a period suspension.
I guarantee you, there were people who were fine with Sidney Crosby bouncing PK Subban's head off the ice in the Stanley Cup final, but then were outraged about Tom Wilson.
Yeah. Right. No, listen, the other side of that, which is the star treatment or kid gloves of it. I hate that. I do. That's got to be judged exactly as it is. Tom Wilson is Connor
McDavid elbowed somebody right in the face this year, got nothing. Like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
What are we doing here?
No, I mean, I agree that those guys should be held to the same standard. But Tom Wilson, to me, he's gone too far over the line too many times now for me to give him the benefit of the doubt. And if a play's close, then it looks a little more suspendable to me when I see who it is. I'm sorry.
That does it for us today here on Robby and Rexrode. Darren Donegan Chase is coming up next. This is ESPN 102.5 The Game.